shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Rise and grind, take flight. Hey.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. I think it's Thursday today. Isn't it? We got March Madness today, don't we? Isn't it March Madness kickoff today?
And it's the first day of spring. And I woke up today to 12 inches of sloppy, wet, nasty ice, snow, and rain. It's raining now and snowing at the same time. 40-mile-an-hour winds. The trees are all covered. Like, it looks like they were all painted white today. All the trees.
It was beautiful yesterday, man. It was like 72, 73 down here. All of our flowers are up.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yesterday, you could see all the rocks in my driveway. That's how much we had lost. And now it's all back.
Well, you know what? It's what I call the bipolar Michigan weather. Yeah. It's like 1 minute it's beautiful. I mean, we've literally gone from 70 degrees to snowing in the same day. And then tornadoes in the afternoon. It's like, it's Michigan, man. It's Michigan. It used to be like our football team, right? We'd be up, we'd get into the fourth quarter, and then it'd be like, what the hell happened?
Yeah. Very, very dismal weather for the first day of spring, let me tell you.
Yeah, well, yeah, just like King says, man, you can keep that crap up north. Keep it away. Look, it's doing the same thing here. We've got this slushy mix going on. Hey, I'm inside. I can't complain.
They canceled every school within 100 miles of me.
That's craziness, man. Come on. Yep. We have four-wheel drive. What's going on?
No, this is like it was raining all day yesterday, and then it turned into freezing rain, and then it snowed this wet, sloppy crap, and then it turned back to freezing rain again. So it's like a crust with slop and a crust, and it's slick as all get out, and it's stuck to the roads really bad. Because the plow going by didn't basically do anything except give me a big berm at the end of the driveway.
I don't know if I've ever heard anyone call ice crust, but let's pause for a quick second to get the audio check. Be right back.
Oh, 80 degrees there yesterday, JAC. I wish.
Okay, I think we're good. I just put up my volume a little bit. Hopefully I'm not too overpowering, but we're going to get it rolling. Good morning, everybody. So a couple of little housekeeping deals here today. So bringing on a new sponsor, and before we do, we're going to do like a little bit of a trial. So I will talk to you guys about Magic Mind at some point, whether it's today, tonight, tomorrow. But check out magicmind.com. But promise me, don't order anything just yet. Because if you're interested in the product, which you will be once you listen to what I've gone through with it already, it's a game changer. It's a game changer for anyone that is sucking energy right now. You know, as you get older, you know, our bodies change as you battle things, especially like cancer or any other illnesses out there that, you know, are chronic. Your energy gets sucked out of you. And Magic Mind has found a way to give you a natural way of you know, giving you energy throughout the day. And there's so many other properties of this product. But like, again, I'm going to talk about it later. This could be a huge game changer for the channel. It's going to be a game changer for you personally. And I want to talk about it at some point, but just not yet today. I've got some things I got to take care of with them before I do. And just check it out, get well versed on the product, and then we'll open it up for a special purchase with a code, and then we'll be able to get our 12-month commitment once we facilitate a few orders. So we'll get it handled. I'm excited about the product. I've never seen anything like it. I'm going to say this: forget Red Bull, forget 5-Hour Energy, forget what Eric's drinking, whatever he's drinking. Forget all that stuff that ends up putting way too much vitamin B in your body. You know, way too much calories and caffeine and everything else. Forget all that stuff. Get natural. That's what Magic Mind is all about. And that's what I'm trying to promote here. It's more of a natural way to get healthy and you know, get rid of all these big pharma things and all these energy drinks that don't do anything but suck the energy back out of you anyway. So anyway, good morning. Let's get rolling right away. We had some news yesterday talking about the Lions proposals and a few NFL rule proposals. I did a video on it yesterday. It was a long video for 20 minutes. It felt like I could have gone longer to discuss really all the other rules that are proposed because there's more than just 5. The Lions have 3. A few other teams have some proposals, but then there was all these little knick-knack proposals that were offered on top of it. So let me just pull this up again real quick here. Now, NBC Sports reported, obviously, the playing rules. So there's a difference here between playing rules and bylaws, right? The bylaws, the Constitution of the NFL, that changes the entire framework of how they govern, certain things, certain policies of the NFL. The playing rules are the on-field rules, and that's where the Lions had proposed a big one, which would amend Rule 8, Section 4, to eliminate an automatic first down as a penalty being imposed for defensive holding and or illegal contact. I think that this is a pretty big rule. I for some reason, doubt it's going to get passed. I think it's been a problem for a long time. And what I said yesterday is, why do the holding penalties on the offense not marry what's going on the defense? And there's a couple of things to think about. One, or this was proffered up to me yesterday. Well, the defense could just bail themselves out, tackle or hold a wide receiver so they can't get the ball. They're 30 yards downfield, they get burned, they just tackle the guy, and they can't catch the ball. So that's why it was a spot foul and a first down. And I said, okay, well, what about the offense? Well, the offense can bail themselves out. What if Aiden Hutchinson's burning around the corner? He just gets tackled. It's the same thing. What if that sack that he was about to get, or strip sack, or fumble, forced fumble that he was about to cause, that can't happen now? What if we would have flipped the field if Aiden got to the quarterback? So I think you have to look at it from both ways. Am I fair in that assessment? Eric, what do you think?
Yeah. And what if it's okay. So what if you're a defense and you've got them pinned back? It's 3rd and 34. And they're on their own 10-yard line. And it's 3rd and 34. And your guy up close to the line does a defensive holding penalty, and that gives them 5 yards and an automatic first down.
Right.
It's the automatic first down part of the foul that is wrong. 5-yard penalty is fine. Give them a 5-yard penalty. As long as it happened somewhere, within 10 yards of the line, give them a 5-yard penalty or make it a spot foul. So if it happened at the 17, they get the ball at the 17.
See, but that could end up giving them a first down, though, by if the 17 was, let's say, 11 yards away.
If it's 3rd and 34, there's no way giving it to them on the 17 from the 10 is going to give them.
Well, I think if we walk through all the scenarios, though, so let's just say, let's start at the 20-yard line. Let's say it's, it's 3rd and 10. They're at the 20-yard line, and you have defensive holding 12 yards down the field. Well, if you give them a spot foul and it's now at the 8, well, it's a first down and they're at the 8. Whereas right now, the way that the rule is it would be an automatic first down at the 8. Mm-hmm. So I know what you're saying. And I kind of said the same thing. Like, either make it a spot foul, and wherever it is, if that gives them a first down, great. But if it doesn't give them a first down, they shouldn't be awarded an automatic first down. Just like on the offensive side of the football, they get a 10-yard penalty and they get to replay the down. And so what I said yesterday, and I'll turn it back over to you, is, well, what if you hold on the offense and now the defense gets the ball back and gives it to their offense because you held, right? Just like they did on the defense, instead of an automatic first down now for the offense. Because of a defensive penalty, it's now the offense held, so now you flip the field. You give the ball back to the other team. That wouldn't make any sense either.
Yeah, no.
But that's like what they're doing, right?
Yeah, and the offensive guys, it all it does is it's just a loss of yardage. There is no loss of down. So if you had holding on second down, they just push you back 10 yards and it's still second down. Now, if it went loss of yardage and it was third down, well, then that makes a big difference. You know,
I think that's a better rule.
and that's what's happening to the defense. They're losing their down. They're making it a first down.
They're losing
And
multiple downs, potentially flipping 3 or 4 downs.
yeah, and you know, the thing between a defensive holding and a pass interference is maybe sometimes it's a judgment call for the ref to make. So he has to say, okay, he was holding him, but he wasn't holding him enough to say it was pass interference. He didn't interfere with him catching the ball, but 10 yards before he got over there, he was holding him. Or it's a receiver that's not even in on the play, that's on the other side of the field, and that defensive guy is holding him, so he never gets open and never has a chance to get the ball thrown his way. So sometimes it's a judgment call, and sometimes it's just a flat out, easy to see penalty. So there's a little bit of that in there. And I did a little research yesterday. I found this chart that came out about defensive holding and illegal contact by defenses. And this is since 2023. So right now, the Minnesota Vikings have been penalized 6 times. They had the least. Most of the teams fall somewhere in between, I'm going to say 13 and 19 penalties during that time.
This is holding.
Yeah, for illegal contact and defensive holding. And the number one team who has been penalized the most by a far margin is the Detroit Lions at 26 penalties.
This is since when?
Since 2023, since the beginning of 2023, the Detroit Lions have had more defensive holding and illegal contact penalties than any other team in the NFL.
This is why I even hate that, the Lions are getting shit on for this right now because of that fact right there that you just spit. But
exactly.
But yeah. Here's the problem. How many games did we watch last season where there was illegal contact against Sam Laporta and Jamison Williams? It ended up being interceptions for Jared Goff, and those penalties weren't called. So here's what I would like to add to this rule. And I think that if the Lions were to, if they're going to discuss this, I think they made a mistake, but I don't know. Actually, I do know. I have the full proposal here somewhere. Here's what I would have done. I would have mentioned the offensive rule with the defensive rule, and I also would have added a challenge. And I would have said, look, holding is so subjective, right? You could have one ref that says he's holding and 6 say he's not, but they still get the penalty. You had all these little ticky-tacky penalties on Terry and Arnold that we know damn well were not enough, in any other game to cause a penalty. So if you're not calling the penalties for the Lions and only against the Lions, that's a problem. If you go back and review all 26 of those penalties since 2023, I guarantee you in those games, you could find a pretty close, scenario for the other team that was not called.
Yeah. The Lions had the least amount of pass interference called for them all season last year.
What,
they had
2?
17 yards.
Yeah, was it 2 or 1?
Huh?
I think it was 2 or 1.
2, and it was for only like 17 yards. It's horrible. The Lions don't get any calls their way. Now, whether that's our receivers are wide open or they're just well covered when the ball's thrown their way, I don't know. But it seems very absurd to me that we don't even come close to the average of all the other teams for pass interference penalties.
So here's the other thing that I mentioned yesterday, when I said this is going to help out Terry and Arnold. Well, it's also going to help out DJ Reed because those two combined had like 18 penalties last season.
Yep.
And then that's not good. And I get it, Rich Eisen laughing at it, scoffing at it, Mike Florio scoffing at it. The FTW Purple Podcast, I think that dude's an absolute whatever. I'm not even going to say it. but visit he called the Lions. He said we are sad sacks. So be sure to go visit the FTW Purple podcast and let them know your thoughts. It's simple to me. I think that this has been a problem in the NFL for a long time for a couple of reasons. Number one, and this is not just for the Lions, I think it's for all teams. I think that offensive and defensive holding should be very similar in how they are governed from a penalty perspective. If it's a 10-yard penalty and replay the down on offense, then it should be a 10-yard penalty and replay the down on defense. Should be the same. That, or get rid of the spot foul. You make it a yardage penalty and you replay the down. Whatever the case may be, I think the automatic first down is the part of it that needs to go. Somehow they need to figure out a way to make this less subjective, because there's been so many games where these refs now have, and I'm sorry, I even hate to say this, I don't have my tinfoil hat to put on, but let's be honest, like these refs have totally trashed some games for teams, not just the Lions, plenty of teams. Go watch all the Chiefs games last year where holding penalties, illegal contact penalties, pass interference penalties are being called late in the game or in strategic, situations, against these teams, and then they lose the game. Whereas they shouldn't have lost the game, or that penalty shouldn't even have happened. So I think that you need to remove the ability from the ref to totally screw the game up, and also remove the element of Vegas. Again, put on your hat, wear it proudly. I think that Vegas is way too involved in some of these game outcomes, and I think that some of these refs are allegedly involved in manufacturing point shaving, if you will, or making sure that the points are close to what Vegas has it called to be. There's so many examples of it. I can't really spit any off the top of my head right at the moment, but there's so many examples of it. You just have to go back and look, and you'll find it. I think it's a good proposal. I doubt it passes. I think it needs a lot of work. I think that they're going to have to. I hope that they didn't proffer this up half-ass. I hope that they put together a good proposal, but I would have included the offense. I would have included, the fact that those rules should be fairly similar, and then let's just get rid of the first down. Like that, I think, is the most important thing. Get rid of the first down. And if someone's going to argue that the defense can bail themselves out, so can the offense. They do it all the time. Look how many times, people say that Aiden's getting held and it's not getting called. How many times would those penalties back up an offense all the way back to the goal line? Maybe you also make it situational, right? What if it's now situational to where if it's in the red zone, it's no longer a first down? What if in the red zone, it's not a first down and it's just replay the down, but between the 20s, it would be a first down? Would that make any sense?
I don't know. Put oven mitts on all the defenders.
Yeah, I think we need to. I'm going to get with Better the Hunt, and I think that we need to get some of his mitts. Let's get them embroidered. Let's put TA's name on it. Let's get DJ Reed's name on it. Get all the DB's names covered. Let's send them a care package, kind of be a funny, and we'll also give them some Magic Mind. Hopefully it passes the NFL policy. I'm sure it will. And anyway, so that's rule number 1 by the Lions that they want to change. Let me just kick into rule number 2, which this one's a big one.
Hey,
what's that, buddy?
We just got our third or fourth super chat of the day from Brandy Coffee.
One
more.
Hey.
Lions.
Yeah, sorry, hold up here. Real quick.
One more.
Yeah, big shout out, Brandy Coffee, $2 super chat. Appreciate you. Trace sent a $25 donation to, just popped up, buy me a coffee. I sent that to the Cancer Foundation. And where's all the other ones? Why am I not seeing them? Hold on.
Mike P was this morning, first one, $10 right when we started.
Mike P, thank you. And then there was another one in there for $2 or $4.
Yeah, I'll try to find it.
Then
there was Kevin Barr did one for $2.
Okay, so yeah, what I did is I married this up with a goal just to turn off ads. So we do it 2 ways. We either get the likes up to 75, or if we have a light day, if we get like $10 donated, then we'll get ads turned off right away, which I think is fair both ways, right? So I'm trying to find where I can even see all the super chats. There's got to be a way. Oh, here we go. All right, Mike P, $10. Brandy Coffee, $2. Kevin Barr, $2. Brandy Coffee, $2. Appreciate all of you guys. You guys rock out with Rockhound Detroitlions. Appreciate it. I think the super chat stuff, though, I think I'm going to start doing these since we're getting into the draft.
Heck yeah.
Detroitlions select Aiden Hutchison, defensive end, Michigan.
We'll do it by round or something, you know, like first round is like the, I don't know, 10 and up club or, well, I don't know. We'll figure something out. So anyway, appreciate all of you guys. We'll get ads turned off here momentarily. We just had one more goal to hit. I think we just needed one more super chat, which we'll call that Trace's because Trace sent it to Buy Me a Coffee as opposed to YouTube. So let me get ads turned off for you guys right away.
Yeah, right on. We got 77 people watching with 51 likes. If those other 20-something people, 26 people could pop out of the chat for a second, just hit that like button. It really helps the channel. If you are not subscribed, please make sure you do. We're on our way to 10,000. We're hoping to hit it by the draft.
So the second major proposal by the Lions was this amendment to Article 20, divisional playoff games, Section 20.2 of the Constitution and bylaws to reflect the following, which the new language is underlined, and then I'll also get into this. Let me switch screens here. Okay, so this is just going to slide through. You know, this was the playoff seeding for last year. This is how it went down. And while I'm reading through this, you kind of see the change. I think I put these in backwards. So this is how it would have changed for last season. The Lions still would have been number one. Eagles would have beat out the Vikings because of their record against NFC teams. Vikings would have been number 3, though. And, oh, it switched already. Come on. Hold the phone.
Yeah, so the Vikings and Commanders would have moved up.
All right, so it would have been the Lions, the Eagles. Yeah, so the Vikings would have moved up, and the Commanders would have moved up, and then the Rams and the Packers would have been the Rams would have been at the bottom, and the Bucks would have been at the bottom. So that's how it would have changed. Now, I didn't go into a deep dive into how this would have affected, you know, all of the different playoff games, who would have played who, you know, so on and so forth. But you could imagine for just a moment here that, one, this makes sense. I remember when I was a kid and I'm looking, you know, a kid, I mean, probably 20 years old, and I'm wondering, you know, the Lions have a better record. How come they didn't win, you know, XYZ? Or how come they're not, you know, in the playoffs? And there was, I don't remember which year it was, but they had a better record than someone else in the NFC North. Maybe it was back in the Central days. And they weren't in the playoffs, or something happened.
There was a year where you had 10 or 11 wins, and we had more wins than teams in the playoffs. And if you go back a ways, and this isn't too far back, the Seahawks went 8-9. They had a losing record. They won the division, hosted a playoff game, and won a playoff game with a horrible 8-9 record.
Well, I guess at least they won their playoff game, but
yeah, they were the only losing franchise to have a losing record going into the playoffs, host a playoff game, and win a playoff game.
Yeah, that's nuts. So this is what this bylaw change says. So pairings and priority is where it starts. It says the 4 division champions and 3 wild card clubs, the 3 clubs with the best records other than the division champs, from each conference will participate in the postseason. Tie games are calculated as 1/2 game won and 1/2 game lost. All 3 wild cards may come from the same division. Clubs eliminated in divisional championship tiebreakers are eligible to be wild cards if their records qualify them. That doesn't change. That stays the same. 20.2, pairings for the playoffs will be as follows. This is where it starts to get dicey. The 7 postseason participants from each conference will be seeded as follows. Number 1, the division champion with the best record. So out of the 4 divisions, or out of the 4 teams that have the best record, that won their division, right? That division champ who has the best record is the number 1 seed. Where it changes is the division champion or the wild card with the second best record would now be at number 2. The division champion or the wild card team with the third best record would be at number 3. The division champ or the wild card with the fourth best record would be at number 4, the number 5, the number 6, and the number 7. So I think I like it. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it makes sense. Why would we have teams that have a shit record host a playoff game? I understand that you have these divisions separated for a reason. And if they are the division champ, maybe they've earned something. But then again, you have teams in said divisions that tank. They do. I actually have a rule proposal for how the draft should probably be working going forward. And I'll get to that in a minute. But where it goes on, it says, pursuant to 20.4b, ties that involve the wildcard playoff teams from the same division shall be broken pursuant to the 20.4a, which says ties that involve wildcard, or that's erased, just playoff teams from different divisions shall be broken pursuant to the same rules in 20.4b. Now, in the first round, the number 2 seed will play the 7, the number 3 seed will play the 6, the number 4 will play the 5, so that doesn't change, right? The 3 highest seeded teams will host the games. In the second round, the 1 seed will play the lowest remaining seed, and the next highest remaining seed will play the second lowest remaining seed. Where it gets different here is it says the winner of the game between the 4 seed and the 5 seed, unless the 6 seed wins the first round game, in which ease the number 1 seed will play the number 6 seed. In either case, the number 2 seed will play the winner of the first round game. The 2 highest seeded teams will host the games. I don't know, but you can find all of this stuff, of course, online. It's everywhere. I did an article, obviously, that's not as more information came out last night, it's not as deep as some of these other articles. I mean, I went pretty deep, but not as deep. I think that the Lions proposing an amendment to change the playoff seeding format, I think it makes sense. It's probably not going to pass. What do you think?
I doubt it passes too. And listen, I posted this on my social media in a couple of different ways and a couple different times. And fans, especially of opposing teams, like they threw me on the fire, just ridiculing me and the Lions and saying stuff like, here, let me see. There was some people that just did not like it whatsoever. And they were making it out like I loved it, but all I did was post about it. I didn't say whether I liked the proposal or did not like the proposal. I usually keep my opinions to myself on this kind of stuff, but people just went nuts. And so people saying like another one that's not happening. Who's coming up with these ideas? Is it their first year in the league? And then, so 2 teams in your division are terrible. The division in the other conference you play that year is the weakest division, and you think you just throw out importance of division games and winning your division? Why have divisions at all? Why play anyone twice? So dumb. Somebody's first week in the league for sure. This will never happen. And then somebody put, somebody from our chat, hate it. Reward division winners with the home playoff game. Otherwise, realignment to 1 conference. No divisions, then seed based on record. What's the point?
Wait. Back up on that. Yeah. Hold on. Say that again.
Okay. So this is from one of our own, Kevin. He says he hates it. Reward division winners with a home playoff game. Otherwise, realignment to 1 conference, no divisions, then seed based on record. What's the point in having divisions otherwise?
So I think that the divisions do a couple of things. One, it helps with scheduling, right? And it helps to identify when teams play each other. Then you've got the rotation. So that has to change. But I like what he was saying there. Just get rid of the divisional makeup for seeding purposes.
Yeah.
Have your conference champ. It would be a conference champ now that's your number 1 seed, not a division champ. So, and it's not conference champ, meaning they've won the NFC championship. It would just be they are the regular season champion, if you will. They have the best record. And then you have to go through all of the tiebreaker scenarios to make sure that they are the number 1, right? You have to go through all that. And then I like what he says. So forget the divisional makeup. Just take the 7 best teams. So you have your champ, and then you got the 6 best teams behind them with the best record. It doesn't matter if they all come from 1 division or not, or 2 divisions, or, you know, if some divisions are left out. I think that the thing here that makes a lot of sense is competition and fairness, where you have some teams that tank. And so if you have a certain collection of divisions that play those teams, well, their records are going to be artificially, how do I say that? They're going to have more wins than they should have. Let's just put it that way.
Look at the NFC. I hate to admit this, but look at the NFC North last year. We played the AFC South.
Yeah.
They got swept by all of us, didn't they?
I know they got swept by the Lions, but I don't know if they got swept by all of us.
They get pretty close because all the other teams were beating them. They weren't beating them as bad as the Lions were, but it just shows you that our division did get inflated by 4 games by playing the AFC South.
You know, what's crazy to me is, you know, that Vikings FTW whatever podcast. God, I can't stand the dude the more I listen to him. This rule helps that team.
Yeah. And he's mad about it?
Right. This rule helps them.
That's the first thing I posted. I went to one of the NFC North groups that I always post in, and I'm like, hey, Vikings fans, we're trying to throw you a bone here, you know, and you know, we're extending the olive branch for the Vikings because listen, the Lions didn't have to do this. Now, I kind of understand why they did, because if the Lions went on to lose in week 15, they would have had to go on the road, and they would have had to go play the Commanders, I believe, in week 1.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, this dude also said that the Vikings were in a rebuild year last year. Really? You're in a rebuild year with the offense that you already had and that defense that you already had and then assembled? Yeah, no.
This year's a rebuild for him.
Yeah, it's more or less when you have a rookie quarterback, and it's not even really a rebuild. I mean, the team is still good. Your foundation is good. You're not scrapping a whole bunch of players and starting over. That's a rebuild, right? What the Lions did was totally different than a rebuild. It wasn't a rebuild. It wasn't a retool. You know, it was as deep as you can possibly get to gutting an entire team.
To me, that's a rebuild. What they're doing in Minnesota reminds me exactly of what they did last year in Atlanta. They went out and spent the most of anyone in free agency, and they have a backup. Well, not a backup, but a rookie waiting in the wings. So just like Atlanta had Penix waiting in the wings, the only thing that the Vikings don't have is a starting caliber backup for JJ. They don't have, the seasoned veteran, and I don't think they're going to get anybody. It's going to be somebody like Jameis Winston or something like that. Is who they're going to end up picking up.
All right, let's run through the rest of these. So the Green Bay Packers proposed an amendment, Rule 12, Section 1, to prohibit offensive players from pushing teammates who are lined up directly behind the snapper and receive the snap immediately at the snap, otherwise known as the tush push.
Yep.
And I understand this to a degree that I think that these quarterbacks or whoever's accepting the snap will end up getting hurt at some point. And I put it this way. If you are pushing against something that doesn't want to be pushed, like if let's say that Jalen Hurts head down, right? He's getting pushed and his neck gets lodged in a way that it shouldn't be, and they're continuing to push, and his neck continues to go sideways, and something happens to his neck. Well, you just made that happen because you're not going to stop pushing. You probably can't hear him, right? And the play hasn't been blown dead yet. Now he's going to be injured. So that part I understand. From an injury standpoint, there's a lot that can go on here. From a competition and fairness standpoint, just beat the play. Figure out a way to beat the play. And if you can't beat the play, I mean, it's no different than what the Lions tried to do in the Dallas game, right? Where we outsmarted everybody, including the refs and the NFL, but they wanted to blame us for it. We outsmarted everyone. The play worked. That's part of competition and fairness, right? You want to do things that are different. You want to do things that separate you. You want to figure out a way to beat the other team. Here's what Harbaugh had to say from the Ravens. He said, to me, you have to take all of those rules holistically. What effect does one rule change have on the next thing? So if you take out the tush push, then you're going to have to take out all of the pushing. I get that, but we'll keep going. He says, a guy can't be downfield, and then the offensive lineman can't come running in and push the ball carrier 5 more yards. You can't take one out, but not the other. They are the same. Just like you're not supposed to be able to grab a running back and pull him into the end zone. That hasn't been officiated. They've allowed that to happen. That's already against the rules. How are you going to officiate that? So if we want to say that you can't help push a running back, then you can take out the tush push if you're going to say that's still allowed. Then, in my opinion, can't take out the tush push. So last year we seen David Montgomery on his feet, right, battling with like 3-4 guys behind him, trying to drag him down, and then here comes the offensive line, pretty much picks the dude up and pushes him forward for a first down for a few yards. Harbaugh's saying that can't happen anymore.
Yep.
I think they're totally different. You have a running back in space, a wide receiver in space, beyond the line of scrimmage. This is behind the line of scrimmage, direct snap, and you're pushing somebody. I think they're different. Now, Harbaugh, obviously, smarter than me, but I think they're different. What do you think?
He's just saying it's illegal anywhere on the field for an offensive lineman to push a ball carrier. And that's anywhere on the field. Doesn't matter where it is. So he's saying if the tush push is illegal, that's illegal too. And I think this is a bunch of whining and crying by the Packers because they played Philly twice, got their butt kicked twice, and they could not stop the tush push. They couldn't do it.
No one's been able to stop it.
No. Well, they do stop it. It's only like a 70 or 80% that they get it.
Only.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
A regular quarterback sneak is in the 90s.
You can't
just
be.
I thought just a regular quarterback sneak was even higher. I thought that was like 90%.
Let's see if we can find out. I don't know if I'll be able to find those stats, but
yeah, because I thought it was Jared Goff on his QB sneaks was at 90%.
Yeah, but he only does what, 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah, but still, that means he's pretty
good. The tush push is happening like 2 or 3 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not 2 or 3 a year.
Well, I think the thing that really got it was the NFC Championship game against Washington, where they kept jumping off sides over and over and over and over again. And I think the thing that they're going to have to change about the tush push rule is maybe you have to make it like a 2-point conversion or an onside kick, where you have to announce that you're doing the tush push, and you have to allow the defense to line up in a manner or in a way that they can stop it. Okay. That they have an opportunity, because the way they line up, they can't line up directly over the center or something like that. It's the way they line up. They can't crowd the middle of the offensive line. And that's the reason they're able to push through.
Well, I think that I think you're speaking of 2 different things. So you can't line up over the center during a field goal or an extra point.
Yeah.
But you can line up over the center in any other play.
Oh, okay.
At least my understanding. Now they've gotten that water a little muddy. I think it's only field goals and extra points.
Yeah, but why don't the defensive linemen just all go shoulder to shoulder? I mean, get as tight as they can and put 2 guys behind them, in each of their gaps. Why aren't they running it like that?
I'd have to watch the play again. So I think that I think the issue with the tush push is if they're utilizing it as a 2-point conversion, then I think that falls in the line with field goal, extra point. You can't line up over the center.
Yeah.
I think that would. Don't quote. This is going to have to take a little bit more research. So obviously someone smarter than me is going to have to figure it out. This is the third time I've lost YouTube this morning. So something's
Lost it. What do you mean? Like the chat?
no, yeah, it just keeps on crashing.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna have to get that figured out. Could be a PC thing. I don't know.
It's going good on my end.
So as far as percentage, in 2022, the Eagles converted 93% of the tush push, 25 of 27. In 2023, they converted 83%, 35 of 42. In 2024, the Eagles' success rate was 82.4%. But again, they're running this play like 40 times a year.
Yep.
Right? As where a quarterback sneak, other teams, right? It says right here, other teams, the Cleveland Browns were 91.7% on quarterback sneaks. The Cowboys, 90%. The Packers were 100%. In the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts was 6 of 6 on quarterback sneaks.
There you go.
Man, I watched this play yesterday. Not to go off script here, but I watched this play yesterday of the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and I think it was their center. No, it was their left guard. Their left guard came off and double teamed the right end, and then a linebacker was stunting, right, and coming through. He pushed off the end, right, makes contact with the linebacker, and then goes back and drills him again. You want to talk about a heady play. I don't think anyone really gave the Eagles' offensive line as much credit as they deserved in that game. Like, Jalen Hurts was so well protected in that game. It wasn't just the defense, man. That offensive line, they played out of their damn minds. Pretty impressive to watch what they did. But anyway, I'll digress. So more rules here. Philadelphia Eagles, they proposed an amendment, Rule 16, Section 1, to align the postseason and regular season overtime rules, ensuring that both teams have an opportunity to possess the ball, regardless of the outcome of the first possession, within a 15-minute overtime period in the regular season. This one has to get approved. This one makes so much sense. I'm so sick of them changing up the overtime rules. It seems like every 3 or 4 years, 5 years, whatever, something different's going on. Look, you've got a critical game on your hands. It's going the distance. It's tied up at the end of the ball game. Why would you only give one team an opportunity if they scored a touchdown, the game is over? That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I can't stand it. Thankfully, the Lions haven't had too many overtime games, but the ones that we have had, it seems that we've lost because of that. Now, I'm not speaking in terms of just the Lions benefiting from this. I think NFL-wide, we've seen plenty of teams get screwed because the other team was able to run down the field and score. If this is like a weather day like today, and it's icy and snowy and wintry mix on the field, you're more likely to be able to run the ball down their throats and go score. But you know what? The other team could probably do the same thing. So I think that it needs to go back and forth until the end of a regulation period of 15 minutes. Whoever wins at the end of regulation, again, well, not overtime, right? Overtime, period, wins. Just keep going back and forth until, and if it's tied up at the end of that, that quarter, why not go to a kickoff? Just like they do in soccer. Put your field goal kickers out there. You start at the 35, back it up to the 40, back it up to the 45, back it up to the 50. We know that Jake Bates has a pretty good leg, so that helps, but I don't know. I think that this one needs to be passed for sure because I think both teams deserve an opportunity.
Yeah. In a regular season, ties are allowed. So if you have a game where each team scores a touchdown and then each team scores a field goal in that 15-minute period, the score is still tied 41-41, then you have a tie. You went the extra 15 minutes, you gave it a try, it didn't make it, which is fine. That's regular season. But once you get into playoffs, then make it where it's unlimited. There is no 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is until the game is over.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. All right, a couple
running-
more proposals here. We already talked about the playoff seeding format by the Lions. The Lions also want to change the injured reserve rule. So amendment to Article 17, Section 17.1. I went over this one last night. Now, this one makes a lot of sense to me because last year, if you remember, going into the 53-man cut day, the Lions had Broderick Martin that just suffered a knee injury in preseason game number 3.
Yep.
And then John Kaminsky also suffered an injury, I think that same week before that game. And they had to decide on what they were going to do because and I can vaguely remember the rules. I should have looked it up, but I want to say that you can only have 2 guys designated to IR prior to 53-man cuts, and those guys have an opportunity to come back. If you go to 3 guys, one of them has to be designated out for the season. They were still hoping that Kaminsky would be able to play again. They knew that Broderick was going to have an opportunity. So what they ended up doing is they left Kaminsky on the roster, which ate up a roster position, which meant the Lions had to cut somebody. Thankfully, Pecco came back, as well as a couple of the other guys. But that put the Lions in, and I'm sure other teams, in a very precarious situation where how do you make the decision? You know, it's like you want to keep them both, but because the way that the rules are written, it's kind of, I think it's just dumb the way that some of these rules are written. One, expand the roster limit to 100. Let's just start with that. Expand the roster limit to 100, and then expand the 53 to 56. You know, give these clubs 3 more guys, an offense, defense, and a special teamer. You know, maybe those 3 guys are like your emergency squad. You know, with the quarterback, you have an emergency squad of 4 players, 1 quarterback, 1 special teamer, 1 offense, 1 defensive player. Now you got an emergency squad that you can carry with you that doesn't count really towards anything, but they can be elevated whenever you need them. I think that would be the smartest thing that the NFL could do right now. And even though it's just 1 body, on the offensive defensive side of the football, look at how it would have helped the Lions going into this last season. So I think this rule makes a ton of sense because you don't ever want to have the situation where you end up losing guys that, you're trying to get a look in preseason and you end up losing some guys because you have to cut them. All because of this rule that says that if you do more than 2, they're done for the year. So what do you think about this rule?
So this one I'm not really understanding correctly. So explain it to me one more time, exactly what the Lions are trying to change.
So the Constitution and bylaws to exclude players placed on injured reserve before or on the day of roster reduction to 53 players from the 90-player limit. So unless such players are designated for return. Let me see if I can find the...
So what does it mean? They want to be able to do more than 3 people to IR and have a chance to get them back? Or more than 2?
Essentially.
Yeah.
So let me pull up the NFL bylaws.
I guess I'm just not understanding exactly what they're trying to amend.
Well, so last year, the Lions had to make a decision on what they were doing with Kaminsky and Broderick Martin. If you placed both of them on IR prior to the 53-man cut day, they were going to be gone for the season.
Ah.
So they ended up putting an injured player that was not going to play on the roster, on the 53, on the 53. So now that he's on the 53, you've now wasted a spot for a guy that is not going to play, and then they have to remain on the roster for at least 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, before you can designate them back to IR. So now you've lost a player that you had in camp that you had to cut, and then you have to wait past the initial waiver period, which means you're probably going to lose those players. And then when waivers are done and you can start bringing players back, that's when they put Kaminsky on IR, and Broderick Martin was already on IR. The Lions also had other players on. I mean, you got to remember in camp, how many players did we lose? We lost like a dozen players just in camp alone.
So essentially they're saying it shouldn't matter when the injury occurs. We should be able to put them on injured reserve anytime and not have it affect our roster.
Correct. They don't want it to affect the roster. And the way that the bylaws are written, and I apologize, for some reason this bylaw seems like it's older because it mentions the first 75 cut day, which we no longer have. The NFL has a one and done now. So here's what it says: 17.1. Article 17.1, cut downs and player limits. So subject to paragraph B through D of this section, clubs will be limited to a year-round roster limit of 90 players on the following combined list. And it talks about the active, inactive, practice squad, exempt, blah, 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 blah. The 90-player limit will not include any players on the following list: reserved retired, reserved did not report, reserved left squad, reserved military, reserved unrestricted free agents, unsigned vets, and players who have not been declared ineligible to participate or suspended by the commissioner for more than a year. So all that bunch of fluff doesn't matter. Any players placed on reserved injured prior to the roster reduction or the 53 cut day on the active list will not count on the club's overall roster limit of 90 players, provided that the club requested waivers on the player with the designation injured and placed the player on reserved injured immediately after the expiration of the claiming period, and provided that all such players will count on the club's overall 90-man roster limit after 4 p.m. New York time on the day of cutdown. So any players placed on injured, physically unable to perform, so IR or PUP or NFI, prior to the roster reduction of 53 players on the active list, will not count on the club's overall roster limit of 90 players, provided that the club requests waivers on the player with the designation failed physical. Like, this is so... It's just crazy the way that they describe some of this stuff. I want to find the guts here. Let me find the guts. So subject to the provisions of 17.3, clubs that will be required to reduce their active lists from 75 players, 90 players, by 4 p.m. New York time to 53, right? Blah, 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 blah. Hold on. No player may play with any team unless an executive... No, that's not what I'm looking for. Active, inactive. Future list. No. The active list for the purpose of this article shall consist of all players eligible to play in the preseason, regular season, playoff, championship, or postseason. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know where I'm losing it here, but 1 hour and 30 minutes prior to kickoff. Nope, I don't want that. Essentially what this is saying, which this is a bad bylaw. It's not up to date. You know, I probably have the bylaws in my other site. I didn't look in it. I probably should have. At the end of the day, what they're trying to do, Eric and everybody, is they're just trying to make sure that if you suffer this many injuries again in preseason or during training camp, that it's not going to affect your cut day, that you're not going to lose these players automatically. You know, I think that they just need to expand IR. I think that they need to expand the 53 to 56 at least. Well, I mean, it's not like they're losing money here.
Yeah, and if you remember, it used to be teams would use IR to stash players so they could get more players on their roster, and they could stash them for 6 weeks and then bring them back. You know, and I don't think that's what teams are doing anymore. I don't think they're stashing players and making up injuries to put them on injured reserve. I think that's what used to happen back in the day. So keeping teams from abusing the IR system.
Yeah, there's some credibility to that they used to do that, stash players on IR, and that's why, you know, now you can return at 4 weeks. It used to be 8 weeks, and then you have a limit on how many players can go to IR to return, which I think is 8 during the regular season.
Yeah,
and it's unlimited, I believe, in the playoffs now or something like that.
Yeah, because it used to only be 2, so that's huge. The Vikings just had a minor signing. The Vikings have agreed to terms with wide receiver Rondell Moore. Whoever that is.
So let me just read this. I think that Jeremy Reisman. Oh, this is old. Okay. Last season, there was a new IR rule. And this rule happened obviously before cut day. So last year, the NFL implemented a new rule that was actually proposed by the Lions. So the Lions are even doing this again. In short, a team may place players on injury reserve on the day of cutdowns, Tuesday. And both of those players will be eligible to return after a minimum of 4 games. That was the problem because the Lions had so many players on IR or heading to IR. It was more than 2. So after 2 players, they can't return. They're done for the season. That's why we lost. I don't have the list in front of me, but like Antoine Green and others that were just done for the year before the season even started. So Dan Campbell had indicated that they have their 2 players chosen for this new rule, defensive end John Kaminsky and cornerback Emmanuel Mosley. Oh, I forgot about Mosley. At this point, you can probably expect both to be placed on IR. So this was August 26th, just before cut day of last year. And moving forward, it says there's something to consider here. The Lions have a couple of other players who are also candidates for short-term IR stints. The severity of injuries to the defensive tackle Broderick Martin and safety Efetu Melifonwu are unknown. If they are serious enough to warrant time on IR, they likely have to make the initial 53-man roster and then be placed on IR in a week. Another possibility is that Kaminsky or Mosley are placed on traditional IR, ending their season, to open a spot for Martin or Melifonwu to take advantage of the new rule. If the Lions need to do some roster gymnastics, don't be surprised if they temporarily cut a vet player who won't go on waivers in order to create a roster spot for these injured players. That is exactly what I discussed last year with Pecco coming back. You know, those handshake deals that you have with players that, you know, they're free agents. They can do whatever they want. So that's kind of the nitty-gritty of what happened last season, is that the Lions had too many players going to IR, and after 2 on cut day, those players are lost for the season. Emmanuel Mosley, I kept saying last year, like, forget about it. Like, just wash your hands with the dude. Be done with him. Like, that was a non-decision for me. Like, enough is enough. But, of course, you wanted John Kaminsky back. You know, of course you wanted your 3rd-round pick, Broderick Martin, to have an opportunity to play. And that's why I think they're trying to change this again to make sure that this doesn't happen again. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what's going to happen with this rule. It's going to get passed, and then the football gods are going to smile upon the Detroit Lions, and they're going to have a healthy season, and we're not going to have to put 1 billion people on IR. We're going to have a season like the Bills, where we only got 1 player on IR for the whole entire season, and our defense is completely healthy for the whole season. Yeah. Put it out there in the universe. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, the last 2 that I'll talk about today, and I know there's more. Call regulations for free agents. So the Steelers proposed a rule allowing teams to conduct 1 video or phone call with prospective, unrestricted free agents to enhance transparency and communication during the free agency period. Currently, teams may only discuss deals with agents during the tampering window. While it remains to be seen how much this rule would alter negotiations, the Steelers believe it would create a competitively fairer environment. So instead of just dealing with the agents, they want to be able to deal with the player as well. And lastly here, K-balls. Whoever knew that K-balls was a problem. So extra time to prepare their balls. Now the Eagles, Commanders, Vikings, Las Vegas Raiders, Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland Browns, and Houston Texans want their balls. Those used specifically for kickoffs, extra points, and field goals to be allowed to be prepared a day before the games, which is exactly how the quarterback prepares their balls before the games.
That's how I prepare mine.
All right. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not going to scuff my balls up before the game. That doesn't sound fun. So anyway, they want to make sure that these kickoff balls are prepared, ready to rock and roll before the game, but a day before, because right now they have to do it like a couple of hours before. That's why you see the kickers out there kicking, and they're bending their balls and doing everything else to get their right feel, so that they're comfortable with the ball that they're kicking that day. I didn't realize that each team had 24 quarterback balls per team, per game. Why would Dan Campbell ever run out of game balls?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everyone should get a game ball. So the game operations will be modified to permit clubs to prepare what they call K-balls using the same process currently utilized for quarterbacks. 60 K-balls will be shipped to each club prior to the year or prior to training camp, and each club can prepare those balls in accordance with the NFL rules for K-ball preparation. The proposed rule change would be that each club will deliver their 3 prepped kicking balls to the officiating crew along with their 24 quarterback balls at 2 hours and 15 minutes prior to kickoff for all games. Those teams reasoned that the rule change would eliminate a burdensome and unnecessary process on game day. Whatever.
Sounds like that'll pass.
I think it would, honestly.
Why wouldn't it?
I mean, you're talking about footballs here. Like, why would you not allow these guys more time to prep? And it does remove the burden of having to do all of this prior to. Another one would be, they were talking about the virtual measurement. So the chain gang could become a thing of the past, while it'll still be on the sidelines, but not the main authority when it comes to ruling first downs. According to CBS Sports NFL insider Jonathan Jones, the NFL plans to recommend the use of virtual measurement as the primary way to determine first downs beginning in the 2025 season. Oh, that's Roger. Sorry.
The Detroitlions select.
I didn't mean to pound the table for Roger. Anyway, I'm excited about this one because we've seen way too many times, especially with the Chiefs games, a lot of inaccurate, even the Lions games, a lot of inaccurate first downs. But Sony has what's called the Hawkeye Skeletrack system. It's a thing of the future, as they're describing it, and the NFL has been working with this technology since 2021. I don't know why it's taken so long to implement, but Jones actually detailed this a couple of weeks ago at the Super Bowl. Well, more than a couple weeks ago, many weeks ago, where he said a 14-camera system that specifically monitors more than 24 skeletal points on a player's body. That system, along with the chips in the footballs and the 18 other specific cameras strategically placed around the stadium, can all be combined to harvest a fully computerized model that potentially tracks where the ball is when players are down, if someone has achieved a first down or if they have scored. I think they're making this way too difficult. You've got the chips in the ball. That's really all you need. Once that ball crosses that line that is painted with a laser, well, it should send up a green signal. Yep, the ball crossed the line. Now what do you look at? Was the player down? You can do that through traditional replay. You don't need all of this other skeletal crap, but I get it. Here's my question. Who's in charge of this? Because what if someone changes the code or messes with something, or you know what I mean? Anything could happen with it.
But the nice thing about this is once the ball is placed somewhere, there's no chain gang coming out and making a measurement. This is just, all right, third down, you're this short, let's go. There's no bring out the chain gang, measure it, bring them back, set everything up, and then have the play. It's going to speed up the game. If you watch the UFL right now, it's what they use, and it's super fast. On to the next play. There is no waiting. There is no delay. There's not this big buildup of, oh man, is it a first down? Is it not a first down? I can't tell. They just come out, oh, it's 30 inches. Here we go. Nice and fast, smooth. And I haven't seen a bad call yet with that. It's just the ref actually places the ball. But what the NFL is talking about is a computer placing the ball, whether it's a first down or a touchdown.
Right. All right. Well, enough of all that. I did not want to spend an hour talking about this stuff. Let's get into the Netflix real quick. So as it was announced yesterday, Netflix is going to be revisiting the game's most important position, and they're going to be profiling a few NFL star quarterbacks this season in the second series of, well, the second installment of quarterback. So, yes, your Detroit Lions quarterback, Jared Goff, will be part of this year's second season of Netflix quarterback. They will also be joined by Joe Burrow. I think that's great. Kirk Cousins, wasn't he in it last year?
He was in it the first year. Yes. So the first year they did quarterback, and they did Kirk Cousins with the Minnesota Vikings. And then last year they did receiver with Debo and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And
But this is the second series, though. This is the second.
So this is the second season of quarterback, but they've had a year in between. So this will be the second time that Kirk Cousins has been on the show, but this time it'll be with the Atlanta Falcons. So this is going to be kind of interesting to watch his transition from being a starter to all the injuries he's dealing with. You're going to find out exactly what he was dealing with, and then how he was able to take it when Michael Penix was finally named the starter and he had to ride the pine.
Right. So quarterback, which obviously premiered in the summer of 2023 with Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota, and Kirk Cousins featured. This gave viewers a special access to the game's star players, right? You get a inside look at what they're dealing with, like Eric just said. The in-game mic'd up moments, the behind-the-scenes moments, even some of their behind-the-scenes moments at home. Season 2, we'll get a closer look at Joe Burrow's incredible 2024 campaign in which he became the NFL leader in passing yards. Nuts to me he wasn't in the MVP race more than he was. And touchdowns, en route to being voted the AP's Comeback Player of the Year. Jared Goff will also give an inside look at Detroit's rise to NFL supremacy as the NFC's number 1 seed and the downfall of a once hopeful season that became a heartbreaking halt in the wild card round. It was not the wild card round. That was the divisional round. In his return to the series, though, Kirk Cousins' ventures into Atlanta is also poised to give an eye-opening look, like Eric just said, at the adversity that he went through as the league's highest-priced free agent, entering free agency, and then entered, New York City with high expectations and eventually benched for the rookie, Michael Penix. So all of this is coming up here in, July, I believe?
Yeah, July.
Uh-oh, what just happened?
I don't know. Everything's good on mine.
Yeah, I just got a major delay. That was awkward.
Looks good on the live stream.
Yeah, like you're way behind. Like your voice isn't even matching anything.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Give us a status update in the chat. What's going on with the stream? Let's go double check. One sec.
Oh, Pat Beach in the chat there. You are reading one of those scam fake posts on Facebook. David Montgomery did not give any money back and is not leaving the Detroit Lions. I'm sorry. That's fake.
What was it now?
A lot of that. One of those fake posts on Facebook that David Montgomery is giving back all of his $12 million and he's going to another team and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
The fake stuff that the people from Nigeria put up every single day on all
or
the
Sri
Lions.
Lanka, or So Eric sent me one yesterday. What was that one called? Blitz Kings or something?
Yeah, Blitz King. I never heard of that before, and they were using a post from this show.
Well, they're using everyone's on YouTube. That's what I noticed. So I went through their whole page, and they're taking. I mean, anyone and everyone. They're taking their thumbnail and they're using it. So yeah, they're going to get a copyright hit from me today.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into this preview here of Netflix. This may get hit by copyright. I'll just trim it out later, but let's just watch the trailer here of what we're going to be in store for here in 2025. Why Mahomes? Can someone explain to me why he's even on this? Because he's not even in it.
He was in season 1.
Here we go.
The greatest comeback in history. What a grab! Touchdown.
The key to success is relentless dedication. dream big, work hard, and never give up.
We're really trying to chase excellence every day.
Does it get heated? Yeah, it's a high-pressure situation.
Seriously? Mascots?
Is this actually the plan?
You know they don't even talk, right?
We were only gone for one season.
You're not really doing that.
Ridiculous.
Can I make another suggestion? Why don't we just do another season of quarterback?
I'm in if you're in.
I'm in.
Did you really think quarterback was going anywhere?
Man, that looks great. I'm excited for it. We get to see an inside look at JG.
Yeah. But you know what? They really should have done an episode of mascots. And Rory, he got robbed if he doesn't have his own episode. And listen, I'm going to talk to Rory at the first game, opening day. I'm going to tell him, hey, man, you need to up your game. You need to be doing this stuff like the guy from the Falcons. You need to be dropping from the ceiling on a bungee cord. Come on, man. Step up your game.
Are you sure Rory's a male?
Well, yeah, it's a male lion. So he's got the mane and everything.
There you go. All right, Eric, what's up next here? Let's get into some NFL news, and we'll jump into some Lions news here in just a few moments. What's going on with the Texans?
Well, some of this kind of bleeds into the Detroit Lions, actually. So Danielle Hunter and the Texans agreed to a $35.6 million contract extension to make him the number 2 defensive end per salary, AAG. So the Houston Texans clearly liked what they saw from pass rusher Danielle Hunter during his first season with the team, where he got 12 sacks, and they reportedly rewarded him with a contract extension as a result. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reported Wednesday that Houston and Hunter agreed to a 1-year, $35.6 million contract extension that makes him the league's second highest paid defensive end. He is scheduled to make $32 million during the 2025 campaign and $55.1 million, with $54.1 million of it guaranteed over the next 2 seasons. So this makes him the number 2 paid defensive end in the league, behind Myles Garrett, who's getting $40 million a year.
No, this is just a 1-year extension, correct?
Yes. So it bumps his pay for this year and gives him a contract for next year, because this year was his last year on his deal, because he signed a 2-year deal.
It was 2-year, $50 million or something like that.
Yeah. So
I guess when you look at, okay, so if you extrapolate it over 3 years, it's basically a 3-year, $85 million deal.
Something like that, yeah.
Which is still less than the going rate. I would say that, I don't know if this helps or hurts the Lions, especially in conversation here with Aiden Hutchinson, that if Danielle Hunter is now the going rate of $35 million a year, that's probably what Aiden is going to get.
Yeah, and Danielle Hunter just hit 30-something years old, so
it's just a 1-year extension. I mean, I think at 31 he's still good, but if you look at the totality of his contract over the last 3 seasons, or the future year plus the last 2 seasons, it's 3 years, $85 million, so it's less than $30 million a year. What was his guarantee?
So let's see, his guarantee with $54.1 million guaranteed over the next 2 seasons, plus whatever guarantees he had in that first year.
Well, this is just a 1-year extension, though.
Yes.
So did they restructure his whole deal?
I don't know, because he signed a 2-year deal with the Texans. So he was there last year and this year. This year would have been his last season. So he's playing into his lame duck season, and they extended him by 1 year and spread the money out over this year and next year.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that he would have. Okay, so it says that
goofy.
The extension was for 1 year, 35.6, making him the second highest paid defensive end. Sources confirmed, obviously, that Danielle Hunter will receive a raise this season. Hunter's guaranteed salary of 2025 was originally $19 million, and he did sign a 2-year, $49 million deal with $48 million guaranteed. That's nuts. He was a 3rd round pick out of LSU. I didn't know that he was a 3rd round pick. I forgot all about that. 99.5 sacks are the 5th most among active players right now in the NFL. And his 39 sacks are the 4th highest total among all players since the start of 2022. I mean, I think that when you look again at his production, he obviously deserves it. But I'm still going to say this. Just because you paid the most for a defensive end, and just because a defensive end may have a lot of sacks, doesn't mean you're going to win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
You know, I think that that's been flushed out
long
enough by now that we understand sacks really don't mean squat at the end of the day. It's how the entire team performs as a unit. I think interceptions are more important. And clearly, I think that we could probably make a very valid argument how many points were scored off of Kirby Joseph last year versus how many points are scored off of Aiden sacks through the first 6 weeks. You know, I think that there's a good argument there.
It all helps in the end, but
yeah, and it definitely helps. It also depends on where you're getting these sacks. What's the situation? Yeah. You had something I think tied with this, so the consequences now for Trey Hendrickson, obviously, and Aiden Hutchinson here.
Yeah, so yesterday, before the news broke of a deal for Danielle Hunter, the Bengals edge Trey Hendrickson announced that he is willing to sit out the entirety of the 2025 season is if he does not have a new contract in place before the start of the 2025 season. And how does Hunter's deal impact the Hendrickson situation? So Danielle Hunter's recent contract extension with the Texans has undoubtedly introduced a new dynamic into the situation surrounding Trey Hendrickson. Hunter's $32 million salary for 2025 and the $35.6 million average annual value of the new money in his deal established a clear and significant benchmark for elite pass rushers. Given that Hendrickson's recent production arguably surpasses Hunter with 17.5 sacks in both of the last 2 seasons, compared with Hunter's 12 in 2024, and then he had 17 in 2023. So you're going, Hendrickson had 17.5. Danielle Hunter had 17, 12. And then Hendrickson can now justifiably argue for a similar, if not higher level of compensation. The fact that the Texans, like the Bengals, are also extending a player entering into his 30s to a substantial contract weakens any potential argument from the Cincinnati Bengals against paying Hendrickson a premium for his services. And then at the same exact time as both of these deals we're working through, the Lions also have to work through Aiden Hutchinson. Is he going to want $35 million a year? And can the Lions pull it off?
Well, I will say this. Right now, the Lions can pull it off. And the only reason why they're able to pull it off is because of what they just did in this free agency period. If you wanted the Lions to go out and spend buco bucks, then it would never happen that you could retain the players that you're trying to build around. I think the biggest difference with what the Detroit Lions are doing and many other teams is clear. They've identified about 9 or 10 guys as their core pieces through their first 4 drafts. Those are the guys that they want to keep around. They've already, outside of, Jared Goff being a free agent acquisition through a trade, or wasn't a free agent acquisition, it was a trade acquisition in 2021. The rest of the guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, Aleem McNeil, who else did they sign? Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, Aleem McNeil, Jared Goff, they've all inked. Who am I missing? There's one more.
There was 4 of them.
Okay, so they've signed those. Now the guys moving forward, Aiden, right? He's up next. You have Jamison Williams, Kirby, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta. These are all guys that are coming up pretty soon. Like next year, any first-round draft pick from 3 seasons ago is eligible to discuss their contract. Any 2nd through 7th round pick is not eligible. But that doesn't mean that Brad wouldn't want to help these guys out or get an extension done early to help stave off what is coming around the corner, which is higher salaries for these positions. And I think that that's why a lot of fans have fallen off in thinking that Brad Holmes is making big mistakes by not doing enough in free agency, when I think he's done more than enough. I think he's done an incredible job, but he's also maintained a healthy cap number. And he's maintained a healthy cap number that will allow this team to be able to continue re-signing and extending the players that they want to build around. If you guys are okay with going all in for one season, like saying F them picks, F them contracts is the same thing, and you just want to bring in high-priced free agents, what are you going to do next year? Because you're not going to be able to maintain that player that you brought in and you paid a boatload of money and keep all of the other guys that you have developed and drafted, or drafted and developed, on your roster. It makes it's nonsense to me that people think that way. Now I understand and respect your opinion that you want to go out and get the shiniest, brightest new toy. I understand that. Like we've been ingrained to believe that since we were children. I mean, I remember getting the catalog. You remember the catalogs when you were a kid? You'd get the, the Sears catalogs and the J.C. Penney catalog, and you'd sit down at the dining room table and make out your Christmas list for the year, and you're going through the catalog and you're finding all these things that you want. My list was endless. Was I ever going to get that list? No. Was I maybe going to get one thing on that list that was expensive? Maybe. But I bet you I got 10 or 12 other things that were probably under $10 or $15, and I was more happy with those things than I was anything else. Same thing applies here, but it's different, right? You need those 10 or 12 guys on the roster versus that one guy. If you have 10 or 12 guys on the roster that stay healthy and that one guy gets injured, well, then what? You need those 10 or 12 guys to level up, play at a different caliber of football, and hopefully get you through the season. That's what we witnessed last year. So is Aiden going to get paid? I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Is Aiden going to get paid? Probably. I think that he's going to be required to prove that he's healthy before Brad is willing to pay him. At least I would hope that Brad Holmes would do that and make sure that, hey, I got to see you in training camp. I'm probably going to have to see you in a preseason game. And then hopefully we'll get a deal done before week 1 of this year. Otherwise, I think it'll be next year. If it's next year, it's going to be more money. If it's done this year, maybe you save $20 million over the life of the contract. But that $20 million, let's talk about it for a moment. That $20 million, that $5 million a year that you're saving, who did we just bring in? Roy Lopez. Right? Who else did we bring in? Grant Stewart. We just brought back Al-Qudi Muhammad last night.
Yep.
Everybody that the Lions signed in free agency right now has pretty much been under $5 million.
Yep.
And pretty solid football players. Levi Onwuzurike, $5.5 million. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Tim Patrick at 4.
Just by saving a few $1 million, obviously it speaks volumes to what you can do on the roster. And I do think it's smart to get the deal done earlier as opposed to later. But in Aiden's case, you've got this injury issue that, and again, we're not there, right? I can speculate, but I'm not there in the room. I'm not there at the training facility. I'm not seeing Aiden work out every day, and neither are you. So until we can see it, we don't know what to believe in just yet as to, is he going to be the same football player? And honestly, we won't know until week 1. We just won't know. Now, at training camp, we'll be able to see him, and we'll have a really good idea. I think we know what Aiden is when he's healthy. And my God, I'm hoping that he jumps right out the box this year and has a better year than he started off with last year. And I think that he will, simply based on the fact that now you've brought back all of these players that helped you get through that season last year. Brad Holmes has knocked it out the park this year. I heard a guy, PFF, say that he gave the Lions a B+ on their free agency. I tend to agree. I would actually probably go A-. Honestly. I mean, I wouldn't go A+ or A. B+ I think is perfect, but I would even say A- because we brought back all the guys that matter and all the guys that helped his team win last year. and a ton of depth. So look, Aiden, if he can prove that he's healthy, he's going to get paid. And Brad Holmes has managed the cap to the point where we still have $50 million available this year. He can get anything done that he wants to get done, at least with one football player. I'm not so sure about JMO. I think that you can find receivers in the draft. I'm not so sure that JMO is part of that long-term plan unless he totally revolutionizes who he is this year. It's not a knock on JMO, not a JMO hater. I just think that he needs to grow up a little bit more this year and show us that he's a different football player. All right, what's next?
One thing is I didn't realize that Antoine Green was still on the Lions because we released him with an injury designation.
Yeah.
He reverted back to the Lions because no one picked him up.
Right.
And so he is on the Lions roster as of right now. So we control him still.
Yeah, that one's, I don't understand that stuff. Like, I'm not as well versed on how all of that stuff works. It's still a process to learn why that stuff happens. But as a rookie that you drafted, you do hold all of their rights. And I'm going to dig into that more. I don't know. Did anyone put out an article on this yet? Did you see anything?
I didn't see any articles, but I was reading through Spotrac yesterday and I saw his name there and I'm like, well, how is he there? And I clicked on it and it said that the Lions had released him with the injury designation, but because he was on his rookie contract and because he was drafted by the Lions and no one claimed him, he reverts back to the Lions roster. And that's all it said.
I'm going to send out a message real quick, see if we can get some clarity. It probably won't happen today. But let me see if we can get some clarity. Because I would like to understand this too. So what's up next?
So we got just one more little bit of NFL news. Per Adam Schefter, a reworked deal for Deebo Samuel in Washington. The Commanders are guaranteeing $17 million of Deebo's previously non-guaranteed salary for this season, along with adding another $3 million worth of incentives per source. Samuel will now play the season on a one-year deal worth up to $20 million, including $17 million guaranteed. So Deebo's probably going to be working really hard to get a contract with either Washington or another team for next year. So I think you're going to have I think Deebo's going to have a decent year this year for the Commanders. I think he's going to work his tail off to try to get those $3 million worth of incentives and try to maybe set himself up for one last mega deal before he can't get any more mega deals.
Who was that again? I'm sorry.
Deebo.
So we worked a deal with him to do what exactly?
So now he gets 17 million in guarantees for this year, and he gets another 3 million worth of incentives. So it's probably a certain amount of catches, a Pro Bowl, all pro, that kind of stuff.
Man, these Commanders are going to be trouble this year.
Yep. Yeah, they're going to be a good team.
They're going to be trouble. Hey, it looks like might be getting a response right away. That would be crazy good.
Oh, all right. And then if you want to go up next, we got the Detroit Lions are re-signing pass rusher Al-Qadim Muhammad.
Huge move last night. Huge move.
The Detroit Lions are bringing back a familiar face and edge rusher Al-Qadim Muhammad on a one-year deal. Muhammad had 3 sacks in 9 games for the Lions last season, making 2 starts after injuries ravaged the defense for the Detroit Lions. Muhammad originally signed to the Lions practice squad in early October after Marcus Davenport was lost for the season with a torn triceps. He made his team debut 3 weeks later after Aiden Hutchinson went down with a broken leg and had 2 sacks in the Lions' final 3 games of the season. So
last night I did a video on Mr. Al-Qadim Muhammad, and if you remember last year when he was brought in, he was elevated to that week's game versus the Titans, and he had a phenomenal game. He had 6 pressures on the Titans. I mean, we routed the Titans, right? I mean, we smoked them, but it was a good game for him to get in because it's one of those feel-good games where you're going up against an inferior opponent, and he was trying to learn the terminology. But Dan Campbell had some really nice things to say about Muhammad, and one of the things that I pulled into the video last night was a quote by Dan Campbell. Where's my sheet? A quote by Dan Campbell, which I think I still have it in front of me somewhere. Maybe not. I guess I don't. But at any point, he was saying how Al-Quddin Muhammad was grown, and the fact that you're bringing in this vet that hasn't specifically played within this type of a system, this type of a defense, this terminology, and that he was able to get up and play and have the effect on the game that he did. Now, it's not like he had an amazing amount of sacks or, anything else that really stood out. And his grades in PFF were not the greatest either, but he ended the season with 3 sacks. He only had 6 tackles, 2 assists. So it's not like he had this crazy effect on the game, or did he? Right? Sometimes it's not what's on the stat sheet that matters. Sometimes it's more about being able to commit to being, just being part of the solution, right? You don't want to be the problem, but you want to be part of the solution, and working together as an unselfish team as the Lions are. I think that the way that he performed last season was commendable, but now you're going to give him a full offseason in Detroit. You're going to give him a full opportunity to now work with Aiden and Aleem and DJ and everybody else, and he's going to have a better season because of it. So I'm super excited. Again, this is depth. I started going through the depth chart, and last night I started putting together what I would consider my starting cast for the front 7. So here it is. Right now, obviously, Aiden is going to be fine to start the season is what we're hoping for, right? So now you have Aiden as your left defensive end. You have Josh Paschal as your right defensive end. That's right. It's not Marcus Davenport. I think that is Josh Paschal's job to lose. They're both going to fight for it. They're both going to compete for it. But if you're going to tell me right now that behind Aiden, and the reason why I put Al-Quddin Muhammad behind Aiden is because Muhammad's 6'2", 250, and he's going to be a little bit more slippery and speedster type of a defensive end. Similar to Aiden here. Aiden's more of your speed end. Paschal and Davenport are almost identical. They're the big can crusher, they're the guys that are supposed to slam that corner shut, contain that edge, and force everything to the other side of the football field. You want to force the team to go a direction they don't want to go. And that's what your bigger, technically slower, stronger guys are for, is to contain that edge. So then behind Aiden, you got Al-Quddin Muhammad. They brought back Mitchell Agood. And I think Nate Lynn is still floating around. And he's someone that can kind of work inside and outside as well. Right defensive end, Josh Paschal, Marcus Davenport. And then they brought back Pat O'Connor. Huge move. Pat O'Connor played incredibly well last season in spurts. But again, you're talking about a guy that has 7 years of experience entering this season. Davenport, I think he's entering his 9th season. Paschal, I think this will be his fourth season. This will be Aiden's 4th. It'll be Muhammad's 8th. It'll be Mitchell Agood's 2nd. It'll be Nate Lynn's 2nd. And then you look at defensive tackle. Levi Onwuzurike is definitely going to be the starter in place of Aleem McNeil right now. And then you backed him up with Miles Adams. This will be Onwuzurike's 5th or 4th season? I think it'll be his 5th. Miles Adams, this should be his 4th. And then behind them, obviously, until they're ready, Aleem McNeil and Mekhi Wingo. Both those guys, they're injured to start off the season. We don't know if they're going to be ready for camp or not. Last I heard, they should be in a limited capacity. Hopefully, they'll be able to hit the ground running. But I'm not expecting either one of those guys to be able to start the season. And then behind Pat O'Connor, you got Isaac Ukwu entering his 2nd season. Both Isaac Ukwu and Mitchell Agood last season really showed some phenomenal qualities with, they're young, right? But they were teachable. And you could see that they were growing. So I have high expectations for these guys, but going into a camp now where you're loaded. I mean, we are loaded. We have 8 defensive ends right now. So everyone crying about bodies. We need more bodies. We need more players. You have 8. And 6 of them, I feel, are really good. Really good. I mean, Aiden and Josh and Marcus Davenport and Al-Quddin Muhammad, I mean, that is a pretty strong defensive end class, if you ask me. And then Levi, I mean, my goodness, this guy, former 2nd-round pick, he really showed up last year being a top 16 rated defensive tackle in the league. and DJ Reader is a top 10. Ali McNeil is a top 5, at times. I don't think you can ask for a better defensive line. And then you add in the fact that the linebacker group is going to start off with Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, and Derek Barnes. I mean, Derek has really grown. I mean, you guys know that I wasn't as high on him because I wanted a different style of a football player. But if Derek can continue to grow the way that he started last year, I think that we're going to be just fine. But more importantly, the 4 guys that you have in front of them and the 4 guys that you have behind the linebacker group this year, I mean, one of the best secondaries in the league. At the left cornerback spot, we'll throw DJ Reed in there. You've got Kirby Joseph, safety. You've got Brian Branch, safety. And then you have Terry and Arnold at the right cornerback position, potentially. I mean, we don't know where they're going to be. And then you have Amik Robertson, which Amik Robertson was able to hang with the number 1s and shut down Justin Jefferson in Week 18. And so did Terry and Arnold. I mean, both of them combined at times in that game were on Justin Jefferson. And they shut the box shut or shut the door shut. So I'm super excited to see, where this defense is headed to. But that's your starting defense. Tell me, that they're not in the top 10, at least on paper, starting the season.
Yeah.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah. We just have to be wary of the paper tiger. And, looks good on paper. Let's see what it can do in the real world.
I think that's the difference, though.
Yeah.
We've seen these guys last year.
Yes.
So it's not that we don't know. We know that they performed last year.
Yes.
And at a high level with all these injuries. And I think that's the key difference. So paper tiger, sure. But I think that this paper tiger has a little bit more experience than guys like you're going to see on, other rosters that were just plucked out of free agency that haven't played together. These guys have all played together.
Yep.
I think that's the key difference here. The continuity is really deep.
Well, yeah, it's built. It's not bought. That's for sure. And even if we do bring in one free agent, let's say that Lions can pull off some trade for Hendrickson or something, you have one player on this line that hasn't played with our line. And if we draft a player, you have one player on the line that hasn't played with this line. So I think it's going to be more of a continuity thing, huge, that so many of our players are not being replaced, whether through the draft or through free agency. It'll make for a lot more continuity.
So do me a favor here. Edward, Chamberlain, and Dolomite. What teams do you guys represent? I see you in the chat. A little trollish, but that's okay. We welcome everybody in. So good morning to you guys. I will highly disagree when you say that we don't have a quarterback when the chips fall. The chips fell all season. 21 IR candidates throughout the year, and we still win 15 football games.
Yeah. So in Houston, when Goff threw 5 interceptions and he still came back and won the game, Goff sucks then? I mean, come on. Tell me another quarterback that did that. No one.
All right.
Tell me another quarterback that threw for 18 straight completions with not a single drop in a perfect game.
Or how about a perfect game? How about Dolomite says you have one solid defensive end and all the others are just rotational? I would disagree. I think the Aiden is obviously, your star-studded number 1. But behind him, I think that Josh Paschal, having been thrown into a situation last year where he hasn't had to play defensive end really since Kentucky, now he's gotten his feet wet last year. And I think that he's now primed and prepped this season to walk into, the training camp ready. He might be trimming weight. We don't know. If he gets down a little bit in weight and he gets a little bit quicker off the end, it is going to be incredibly difficult to keep Josh Paschal out of the backfield. Now, he's more of a run stuffer, right? He's more of an edge setter, just like Davenport is. But Davenport also has a bevy of pass rush moves as long as he stays healthy, which is the biggest knock on him. As long as he stays healthy. Davenport last season was ranked in the top 32 defensive ends, and I think that was for good reason, right? If PFF had him as a top 32, and the Lions at one point last year had 3 in the top 32. Zadarius Smith still may be an option, There was some rumors yesterday. I don't remember who said it in the chat. Something about Zadarius Smith just being a party animal since he entered Detroit. I have no validity to that, statement. I have no idea if that's even true. I would like to know where that came from. Let me give you an update on Antoine Green here. Per source says, when a player is injured during the offseason and waived, if they aren't claimed, they revert to the waiving team's injured reserve. An injury settlement is paying them out for the agreed upon length of their recovery and clearing them off the roster. There was never an injury settlement. Oh, there wasn't an injury settlement with Green last season. He was injured. Oh. He was waived, unclaimed, and reverted to IR. I thought that they injury settled him. Isn't that what Spotrac said?
Yeah.
I thought so too.
Yeah,
but this is a good source. So
I read that he got an injury settlement.
Yep, he's just on our IR right now. Yeah. I'm not sure.
That's another thing where, no matter where you read it from and what source you get it from, the internet gets a lot of stuff wrong, and then you find out later, oh, he didn't get an injury settlement. They just reverted him to IR. And I'll say this to the trolls in the chat, whatever you think of our defensive ends, we went 15-2 with practice squad players. So if we can do that with practice squad players, when we get our starters back this year, watch out. Especially those purple people eaters and the Green Bay trash cans. Had to get my Packer dig in there.
All right. Okay, let's get to the last segment of the day, which is a game that you wanted to play called More or Less.
Yeah, more or less. So this is kind of like going back to Bob Barker. Is it more or less than $4.99? Okay, so yesterday.
Wait. Is that the guy that climbs the mountain?
Yeah. And you got to say more or less. You got to make him stop. Yeah. Okay. All right, here we go. So yesterday I came across an article with some predictions for what Aiden Hutchinson might do in the 2025 season. And this got me to thinking about what our 2025 squad may be capable of, including some of our new players. So let's take a look at this article, and then let's do a little game of more or less. So ESPN senior writer expert Mike Clay actually predicts that Hutchinson will be the most productive defensive end in the entire league in 2025 when it comes to fantasy points. Clay predicted that Hutchinson will have 59 total tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and a massive 16.7 sacks for the season. It's the kind of display that the Lions could have seen in 2024 had Hutchinson not gotten injured. Those projections equal 186.6 fantasy points, which is the highest for any edge defender. That high 16.7 sack projection total is also the highest in the NFL. So let's take turns and predict just how many sacks Hutch will get for the first player on our little list here. So Aiden Hutchinson had 8 sacks in 2024. Will he have more or less than 16 sacks in 2025, and why?
Can you hear my background noise right now?
Nope. I can't.
One sec. All right. Could you guys hear that? Eric, could you?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Had a little issue there. I was playing the video for some reason. It just started to go on its own. Okay, so you're asking, is Aiden going to have more or less than the 59 total tackles, the 15 tackles for loss, the 2 forced fumbles, and a massive 16.7 sacks for the season?
Just the sack part. We're going to concentrate just on the sacks.
Well, Bob, I'm going to have to go with less.
All right. And why?
Well, I think that this is going to be a season in which Aiden's going to have plenty of opportunity, right? I think that getting more than 15 sacks in a season is extremely difficult. That's why you don't see many edge rushers in the league get more than 15 sacks in a season. The sack leader the last couple of seasons, Trey Hendrickson, had 17 and a half. Myles Garrett has averaged about 12 to 14 a season his entire career. I don't think that Aiden is at the level of a Myles Garrett, and he's also coming back from injury. Expecting that he's going to be at least 90% this season, coming back from injury, 90% the Aiden of the old. This is now a different defense. This is now going to be led by Calvin Shepard. I'm not expecting as much blitzing. I think that the front four is going to be a little bit more reserved, calculated, with an approach that maybe makes a little bit more sense as a season kind of wears on. But these guys are going to be, in my opinion, asked to win their one-on-ones. And I think that this is going to be that committee approach, right? Where, well, let's throw the word committee out. Let's call it the hive defense that I always talk about. I think that this is going to be an unselfish season for this defensive line. Everyone's going to contribute. Aiden's going to be asked to contain as opposed to getting after the quarterback, whereas maybe the other side is going to be asked to get after the quarterback instead of containing more often. We might see a little bit more linebacker blitzing because, again, this is Calvin Shepard. So I'm going to go with less, but I don't think it's going to be much less. I'm going to go with 14 for Aiden this year.
All right. And that's right around where I was going to go. I'm going to say somewhere in the 12 to 14 range. So everyone in the chat, make sure you play along on this game. You tell me more or less, and then put a number of how many sacks you think Aiden Hutchinson is going to get in the 2025 season. So I'm going to nail it down. I'm going to say 13 sacks for this season is what Aiden Hutchinson's going to get. And that would be a fantastic year. That would be the most of any Detroit Lions edge in forever. And that would be the first time we had a double-digit sack person in quite a few years. All right. Next up, the Lions' newest cornerback.
Aiden had double digits.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. He had 11, didn't he?
Oh, 11. Okay. So
or 11 and a half or whatever 2 seasons ago.
Yeah. So, Mr. DJ Reed, our brand new cornerback.
Hold on one sec. Hold on one sec. Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
So I want to do something different this year. Remember when we ended the season, I was talking about I want to do put your money where your mouth is, right? Someone brought this up. It was in a mailbag, or it might have been in an email, or might have even been somebody in the chat. I don't remember. But someone had a great idea that if we put together some opportunities for people to kind of bet against the house, where if you dislike, my take on somebody and I say, well, Aiden's going to have 14 and you think that Aiden's going to have 20, well, put your money where your mouth is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up some bets, donations for Rockhound Cancer Foundation. If I'm right, then your money that you spent gets donated. If I'm wrong, you'll get an opportunity to continue to donate that money, or you'll get your money back. So the way it works is when I put it up on Buy Me a Coffee, you're buying a raffle ticket, right? If I'm putting a $10 donation out there for how many sacks Aiden will have, you buy the $10 raffle ticket. But the end of the season, when we review these donations, then we'll settle up then. And you can either, like I said, you continue with the donation or the money goes back to you. So I think that as we get rolling through some of this, I just wrote it down. I had 14. Eric had 13. If you think it's more than that, if you disagree with me, I'm going to put the bet on Buy Me a Coffee, where you guys can buy a raffle ticket to enter in. And here's what I'm going to do with it, though. If you guess correctly when you buy your ticket, if you guess Aiden's exact stat number correctly, and I'm going to pick one site that we have to use, because some sites use different numbers. Yep. Some don't, call half sacks anymore. They go up to the next number. So I'll say it'll be on the Detroit Lions website, whatever they officially put down for him to have sacks. Then we'll do a pool, right? That a portion of the money that gets donated will go towards a pool that the individual or individuals that guessed it correctly can win this pool. Kind of like, almost like a squares, I guess, if you will. But Yeah, we'll do something fun with it.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I like this. I like that we're writing it down. We'll have some receipts for later on because this is very, very early. This is before the draft and free agency is finished, anything. But I thought I'd pick some of the players that everyone's been talking about, especially some of our newer players and our re-signed players. I only have one player on this list that is just he's on his rookie deal. So number 2 on my list is Mr. DJ Reed, our newest cornerback from the New York Jets. In 2024, he had 1 interception. So will he have more or less than 1 interception in 2025? Let me know in the chat what you guys think. Will DJ Reed have more or less than 1 interception? What do you think, Will? Because Mr. Reed is not known as a big interception machine.
Hold on here. DJ Reed.
Yep.
Looking at his past, I don't know, 6-7 seasons.
Yep.
No interceptions last year. 1 in 23, 1 in 22, 2 in 21, 2 in 2020. So I think the difference with the Seahawks, where he had 2 interceptions in both of his years there, is he had a better cast in the DB room. And I think that when you look at this DB room currently constructed, I think that it'll have more opportunity. So the question is, will he have more or less than 1? Can I say just 1?
That was going to be my guess as well. He's going to, well, actually, I'm going to say 2. I'm going to say he goes over. He gets 2 because he has a better cast. It's going to be more like when he played with the Seahawks.
Yeah, so I guess is it more or less than 1? I'm going to say it's 1. How do how do we change that verbiage?
I don't know. So you're even with it. All right.
Yeah, I guess I'm taking even money there.
Yeah.
Okay. Will says 1. Eric says 2.
There you go. I'm saying over.
All right.
All right. The next player on our list, Mr. Aleem McNeil, who blew out his ACL in November. I was there. It was horrible. Okay. He played in, 14 games last year, and he had 4 sacks. The year before he had 5, the year before he had 1, and his rookie season he had 2. So he's averaging right around 3 or 4 sacks a season. Saying that, Aleem McNeil had 4 last year. We don't know when he's going to be back. We don't know if he'll be back for half the season, all of the season, or none of the season. Will Aleem McNeil have more or less than 4 sacks in 2025?
Oh, man. This one's really hard because...
Lots of variables.
Yeah, too many variables. So more or less than 4 sacks. I'm going to go with even money. I'm going 4. I know it's kind of hard with the questions. I think that I like the more or less, but I like the number 4 better.
So I'm going to go less. I'm going to say 2 this year because I don't think he's going to be back until about October. That's just my mind because bigger guys, they're putting a lot more stress on their knees than some corner that's, 180 pounds. This guy's a 300-pound behemoth or close to it, and after your surgery, even if you're a guy that's really in shape and you're going through all your rehab and everything, I just went through a surgery with my shoulder and I gained back 40 pounds from having surgery and having to sit around and do nothing for 4 months.
Hey, your legs weren't broken.
Yeah, I know, but the winter happened.
Your legs weren't broken.
Yeah, but winter happened. There's no place to walk around.
Juju says no excuses. You turn those into opportunities. You get your ass out there and you march. You find that effing dog.
Yeah, I do need to. I broke my Bowflex too. Oh, I'm so mad. So I'm ordering a recumbent bike this week because the Bowflex thing, I loved it, but it didn't last very long.
I'm going to go rowing machine. I'm doing rowing machine.
Kind of money on it and then have it break, after a year.
It's not under warranty?
No.
What?
I bought it used.
Oh.
Yeah. So I got what I paid for. All right. So up next, okay. So Lee McNeil, you said even at 4. I said under at 2, just because I believe Lee McNeil, he's a bigger guy. It's going to take him till the middle to end of October before he gets back on the field playing at his normal pace. It's going to take him a couple games to get back into the swing of things. All right. Now, one of our newest Detroit Lions, Mr. Roy Lopez, had 1 sack in 2024. And let's see what he did in previous years. Let's see. So he has been in the league for 4 seasons. His first 2 seasons, he had 1 sack. In 2023, he had 0 sacks. And then last year, he had 1 sack. So Roy Lopez had 1 sack in 2024. Will he have more or less than 1 sack in 2025?
So Roy is not known to be a sack guy.
Nope.
And, honestly, just look at DJ Reader. I mean, Reader is not, he's not known to be a sack guy. Nose tackles generally are not, especially in a 4-3 system. You got a nose tackle that is just there to be a gap eater, someone that focuses on, obviously he gets a lot of double teams, but focusing on trying to stuff the run, maintaining 2-gap integrity, which that's my biggest question for this season. Are the Lions going to continue with the 1.5-gap strategy, or are they going to go back to 1 single gap, or are they going to go up to 2-gap system? That hinges on all of these potentials, because if they're required to maintain, 1.5-gap integrity, I think that kind of limits a little bit of your sack opportunity, right? Depending on what the call is, what the defensive call is. So for Roy Lopez, number one, he's got to make the roster, right? And I think that he will, especially if you're committing that kind of money to him. I think that it would take a catastrophic failure during the summer for him not to make the roster. But be that as it may, I'm going to stick with 1. So I'm going to go with even money again. But
right.
I think there's possibility he could have more, simply because he could be a benefactor of Aiden and Davenport and Pascal and Reeder and Aleem, and you don't know what packages they're going to put together where you have multiple guys, on the line, and obviously he's going to be utilized in a rotational effort once Aleem is back. So fresh legs matter, right? Fresh legs really matter in the NFL, and the fact that these guys have so much rotation behind them, I think, is incredible for this season. So I'm going to stick with 1 because I don't know what I don't know. And the same thing for Aleem. I just saw someone say in the chat, what is Aleem going to play, like 6 games? Well, if Aleem is back in October, he's probably going to play 12 games.
Yeah.
And I think that he can ink out 4 sacks in 12 games.
Yeah. All right. So Mr. Roy Lopez, I'm going to say, since he showed up to his initial press conference with a cowboy hat on and gave such a good speech, that he's going to get 2 this year. So I'm going to go over with 2 for Mr. Roy Lopez. I'm going to have fair weather fan Eric going there.
Fair weather fan Eric?
Yeah. So
all right, 2. So you're going on the over.
Yes, over. So this next one is fun. This next one is our wide receiver we just signed back, Mr. Tim Patrick. Now, according to this list on Spotrac for last year, he had 3 receiving touchdowns. I think he also had 1 more. He must have got it rushing, because I thought he had 4 touchdowns last year, if I remembered right. Because he had 2 in 1 game.
Yeah, it's crazy. I called those, didn't I?
Well, so did I. I made a bunch of money because I kept every week betting Tim Patrick touchdown.
Oh, see, I didn't. I called the exact first game he was going to get touchdowns. I didn't bet it every week. I made the exact first game.
For like 2 or 3 weeks, I bet it, though. Yeah, but I bet him to have the first touchdown of the game and won a bunch of money on that one.
Tim had 3 touchdowns.
Oh, okay. 3 total?
Yep.
All right. So, Tim Patrick, the most touchdowns he's ever had in a year is 6. And last year he had 3. So will he have more or less than 3 touchdowns in 2025 as the Lions' number 3 or 4 receiver?
This one's easy for me. Tim is definitely Tim is definitely the third wide receiver. And again, these can only happen if they stay healthy, right? But Tim is now going to have more of an opportunity by going through an entire offseason with Jared Goff. And I think that is going to give him even more continuity with Jared. And obviously Tim started to turn on the last, I don't know, third of the season last year, maybe.
Yep.
And I think that that's going to carry over this season. I love the continuity factor. I think that Tim is going to be involved more often. So I'm going to go more and not just more. I'm going to go 5.
Okay. I'm going more also, but I believe Tim is going to match his career high in touchdowns in a season with 6.
All right.
So put that on your little list.
Oh, it's on the list.
All right. Okay, let me get back over here. And now, Mr. Pat O'Connor, who we just re-signed day before yesterday. All right. So Mr. Pat O'Connor had 1 sack with the Detroit Lions. He's played since 2017. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons. He's never had more than 1 sack in a season. Will Pat O'Connor have more or less than 1 sack in 2025?
Oh boy. What was Pat O'Connor? Do we know what Pat O'Connor's contract is?
No, they still haven't disclosed it. Just said he signed a 1-year deal, the last I saw.
Let's take a look real quick, see if it's updated.
Nope. It says 000.
Nope, it is not updated.
Yep.
I'm going to assume that it is going to be a very similar deal to what he received last year. Maybe a 1-year, $1.3 million deal, which means he has to make the roster. So as deep as this team is, and I think that Pat O'Connor is invaluable, he may end up on the practice squad if he can't beat out, Davenport, Lopez, Adams, Al-Qadim Muhammad. Last season, the Lions, I believe, carried 10 or 9 into, here I can tell you actually. The Lions carried 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The Lions carried 15 defensive line, interior, and edge into camp. And then into the 53-man, I believe that they carried a total of 9 or 10. So this is a very deep roster, and it's crowded with experience. He has to make the roster. So I think for that reason, this is it's hard to even answer because I don't know if he's going to get a lot of playing time. But let's just assume that he plays a rotational piece. I'm just going to go even money here. I'm going to go even with 1 because even when he gets into one game at some point, I think he'll get 1. But I can't go more right now until we know what's going to happen. What I'd like to do is we have our numbers, and we'll finish these, today. After 53 cuts, that's when we'll identify that's when we'll identify who's going to do what.
Yep. So it'll be fun to try to do this again, see where we're thinking later on versus now. I'm going to go with under on him with half a sack, and I'm going to hope that Mr. O'Connor exceeds my expectations. All right. Now, this one's not an over-under, or I mean a more or less. This one is just how many. Terrion Arnold, he had 0 sacks. He had 0 forced fumbles and 0 interceptions last year. How many interceptions is Terrion Arnold going to get this year? He could have had multiple last year had he just turned around on a few of those balls. And towards the end of the season, he was turning around and he was getting in position and batting balls away, which was very nice to see. So I think he is on the verge of getting some interceptions. How many do you think he has in 2025?
Well, I think it starts with PBUs. And PBUs matter from the standpoint that, like you just said, finally getting his head turned around and making some plays, against the receiver and batting that ball away. And he had 10 PBUs last year. Matter of fact, last year, Jalen Johnson led the league in pass breakups with I think it was a 16.7% rate. Here, let me look this up. Sorry.
It's all right.
Hopefully I can find it quickly.
We got some super fun trolls in the chat.
Yeah,
too.
I see him having fun in there. It's all good. We won't kick you out today.
Yeah.
Okay, so 19 last year, Denzel Ward.
Wow.
Browns had 19. Derek Stingley, 18. Michael Jackson, hey, I didn't know he was still around. He had 17. Zion McCollum, 17. Jack Jones, 16. Cam Taylor-Britt, 16. Alontae Taylor, 16. Brian Branch, 16. So Brian was tied for tied for fourth place last year. Let's get all the way down here. Kirby Joseph, 12 at 18. DJ Reed, 11. So right now we have 3 guys in the top 25. DJ Reed, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch. 3 guys in the top 25 for PBUs.
And how many did Terrion have?
Terrion is in the top 35 with 10. So we have 4 guys in the top 35. And I guarantee you, if I'd go back and look at how many other teams have 4 in the top 35, there probably might only be 1 other team. And I'll go back and do that. Matter of fact, I'll do it later on today and do a video on it when I talk about the cornerback room. So I think that PB is where it starts with PBUs, right? It starts with being able to make a play on the ball. The second season for Terrion Arnold is going to slow down. He's going to be able to identify what he did last season, the mistakes that he made, and he's going to improve upon it. The second year is critical. It's vital for a corner to be able to maximize their potential and learn what they did wrong. And he's probably been doing it all offseason, watching his tape, learning what he did wrong. At least any great corner does that. They're going to self-evaluate, and then their cornerback, coach is going to evaluate, teach, criticize, and that's all good. So with 4 guys being able to get their hands on the ball, at some point, these turn into tips. Tips turn into interceptions. Sometimes these turn into picks straight away. I think that, like I said the other day, I think the Lions are going to lead the league in turnovers this year on defense, which is fumbles, interceptions, all of it. I think the Lions are going to lead the league. And I think that Terrion Arnold, the question is, he had 0 interceptions. How many does he get in 2025? I'm going to go with 3.
Oh, you stole my thunder.
You saying 3 too?
Yeah, I predicted 3 last year, so
okay.
That's going to be my prediction for this year. Because I made a bet preseason right as soon as he was drafted. His over/under for interceptions was 2.5, and I bet the over. And of course, I didn't hit it because he didn't get any last year. So
Yeah, look, I think that Terrion was so close. I think that last season his head was spinning a little bit.
Yep.
And then obviously as injuries kept on happening, it makes you wonder. Like, I would love to be able to ask him the question, which would be this. As you're watching all of these guys, you're a rookie, as you're watching all of these guys go through injuries, number one, have you ever witnessed anything like that before in your playing career? At Alabama, which I can't remember Alabama having that many injuries, but what was going through your head? Like, were you starting to be a little fearful that you're next? Or do you not think that way? You compartmentalize it, you just play your game. So did it affect him at all? Was he just trying to stay in phase and trying to do the best he could at staying in the pocket of these receivers? And I think he leaned on his hands a little bit too much. But I'm curious what it was going through his head last season, because for whatever reason, He didn't get his head around often enough, and he got flags for it that I don't think that were deserved.
Yeah.
I think that just because you didn't get your head turned around doesn't mean you committed a penalty.
Yeah. But if you remember at the end of the season, he was getting his head around.
Yeah, he was.
And it changed. It completely changed. He stopped getting all these flags. The last, 7 or 8 games of the season, he only had one flag for something?
Yeah, I think that when we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, he had like 85% of his penalties in like the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It might even have been the first 3 or 4 games. And then it just kind of shut down for a couple of games, and he got a little short spurt of a couple of more, and then the rest of the season he was good.
Yeah, if you remember, we were clamoring for Aaron Glenn to put oven mitts on him in practice. And it actually got to Aaron Glenn, and he actually said something about not putting oven mitts on the guys.
I remember so that. Yeah.
That was great, that we talked about it, and it got all the way to him that, hey, put oven mitts on these guys.
Someone's listening. Look, I'm sure that they have people inside, their walls that are probably supposed to listen, see what people are saying or writing or whatever. I'm not saying that they tune into just us. They probably tune into just about everybody. Yeah. I don't know. At least that's the going argument right now. Someone's listening, because there was a couple of things last year. If you remember when I was talking about David Montgomery, and I'm like, man, this guy's just got sledgehammers for legs. And it was literally that day that I posted it before the game that, he's going to be a big problem. And he was. He had an incredible game that game. And I said that he had sledgehammer. And Dan Campbell steps up to the mic, and he was talking about David Montgomery. He says, man, I don't know. The guy's got sledgehammers for legs. And I just died laughing. Like, someone reading my post, like, what is that? It just doesn't happen. 2 people on 2 totally different planets here don't talk about sledgehammers the same day when talking about David Montgomery's legs. Like that, big ups to Dan Campbell, man. Whoever told him, whoever brought it to his attention. I can't imagine that he had the same idea. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But you know what, also, and I hate to bring this up, but I said this to Megan last night because, and I'll just say it, like I had some weird premonition. I'm not like some goofball, but I had some weird premonition things that they were going to happen this year. And matter of fact, I had a conversation with Trace, I think, offline about some of these things where I said, I see big war coming, and the economy is going to tank. And not even 2 weeks later, it starts. The economy starts to tank. And then, anyway, I don't want that to happen, but I started to see that this stuff was about to happen. Some people I spoke to, were saying that these things were coming. But last year, I know in one of these shows, I said that Aiden was going to snap his leg and be done for the season. That I had a weird dream that was going to happen to Aiden last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it freaking happens. I know I'm not just thinking and making that up. I dreamt it, and I said it on one of these shows. I need to go find where I said it. I need to figure out what show I did where I said that. So I'm going to ask AI to scrub all of my video today.
Yeah.
And find it, because that is just crazy. And if I can think of stuff like that, I need the lottery numbers to hit tonight.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I need. I need it to give me the lottery numbers, not I don't want Aiden to get hurt again.
All right. So we have one more player on my list for more or less. And this is Mr. Al-Qadim Muhammad, the gentleman that we just re-signed yesterday. So he has played since 2017. In all of his seasons, he has never garnered more than 6 sacks. Last season, he had 3 sacks with the Detroit Lions. With a full off season, with a good opportunity this season, does Al-Qadim Muhammad have more or less than 3 sacks in 2025?
So, again, I think that Al-Qadim Muhammad, do we know his contract details yet?
Mm-mm.
I didn't think so. It's too early.
Nothing. Yeah, there's nothing on there.
Look, I think that Al-Qadim Muhammad has more of an opportunity than not to land on the roster. Look, this guy's got great experience. I think he's a hell of a football player at times, and I think that he did not benefit from, joining the team at when he did, and all the injuries from week to week to week. I mean, he wasn't able to play with the best of what Detroit has to offer. And I think that he's going to have that opportunity this season. And I think that some of these players that we've brought in, the Pat O'Connors, Al-Qudim Mohammeds, the Roy Lopez, they are stepping back into, some of them, or stepping into for the first time, a great opportunity where this defense plays for each other and they play unselfishly. And because of that, people, players like Al-Qudim Mohammed are going to have more opportunity. Players like Roy Lopez are going to have more opportunity. And I feel like Calvin Shepard is going to figure out a way to get these guys matched up to take advantage of the one-on-ones, to flush it out a little bit more. If Aiden is going to get doubled, which he doesn't get doubled as much as what people think, he gets chipped a lot. DJ Reader gets doubled. Marcus Davenport last year was getting doubled infrequently, but at times. If you double DJ Reader, that leaves an asset open somewhere, right? You only have 5 assets really on the offensive line, sometimes 6. And if you start doubling players, then someone's going to be open. So that means a player like Al-Qudim Mohammed or, Josh Paschal, someone is going to win their one-on-one. I think that Al-Qudim Mohammed is going to have a better season. I think that he's going to be able to earn more snaps, and he's going to benefit from hitting training camp with all of these bodies and having such a deep cast of a defensive line to work with. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say not a crazy number, but right now, if Al-Qudim Mohammed can get into the rotation at more than 40% of the snaps, I'm going to roll with 5. That's my call. I think it's going to be 5.
I'm going to say 5.5.
These halvesies, man. What's up with the halvesies?
Well, I got to do the half. 5.5. I'm too used to betting with the halves.
I don't like that. I don't like the halves because it's either you got the sack or you didn't. Why can't we?
They both got there at the same time.
Yeah, I know.
They crushed the can. They both got there at the same time. So we've had a couple of trolls in the chat today.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back and look at a few. What did I miss?
Well, this is what I want to say to Mr. and Mr. Troll, the 2 guys that are in the trolling us today. I believe they're Philadelphia Eagles fans, which is fine. They're talking about Howie Roseman and stuff. But this is what I want you guys to do. You guys tuned in today for one day, okay? Great. We love having you guys here. That's fine. But what I want you guys to do is to come back after 53-man cut day and watch our prediction show for the season and see what we predict then. And then I want you to come back at the end of the season and watch our end of the season review and to see how good we did. If we were good, great, give us our praises. If we didn't do great, well, hey, man, you can roast us all you want. Please come back and roast me as much as you can. I highly doubt you're going to get to roast us a whole lot because last year, 15-2, nailed it perfect. There was a bunch of stuff that we got absolutely right last year. Did we get some stuff wrong? Yeah. But I mean, if you throw enough spaghetti against the wall, you're going to get something right once in a while, right? So I want you guys to come back for some of the other shows. Don't just jump in for just today and be a troll. Come back for a bunch of other days too, please.
Okay. Now I got to pile on. I really hate to be the guy that toots the horn, right? That's what the chat's for. That's what the audience is for. That's what the people that follow the channel are for. They know, they recognize what we say and what we get right. And I will just say this. Look, I'm not trying to be the guy that says, I got this right, or I said this first. And, yeah, it happens often that we say things first, that we get a lot right. I shouldn't be the one that has to say that, right? The chat could do that. They know. They're the ones that have been supporting us. This audience, this community has been the ones that have been supporting us this entire time. They wouldn't be here if we just spoke out of the left side of our mouth the entire time. Eric is more of the fan, right? He's
I'm optimistic guy.
Right. He's going to give you it's roses, rainbows, and all that good stuff. I'm the realistic analytic guy.
Yeah, my friends get mad at me because every year I say the Lions are going to the Super Bowl, right? And when I predict that the Lions are going to go 12-5, and then I predict that they're going to go 15-2, and I get it right 2 seasons in a row, I got it absolutely right. They look at me and they're just like, "Holy crap, you finally got something right."
Yeah.
For the first time ever, and they give it to me. They give me hell all the time because I predict the Lions are going to the Super Bowl, and they're like, "You always think they're going to win," So when I do predict it right and I get it right, they don't like to give me flowers. They just like to give me more crap. So that I'm used to it from my friends.
They'll always point out all the things you got wrong before the things that you got right.
Yes,
Look,
but that's what makes them my buddies,
so at the end of the day, look, there's people out there that'll say the same thing over and over and over and over. And at some point, like you just said, you throw enough spaghetti at the wall, sometimes it sticks. Well, there's a difference between doing that, and then there's the difference between actually writing an article and putting it out there for people to read. That's now cemented in legacy, right? That is there. It's not going away. You put a video out or you do live shows. And unfortunately, when you do 10, 12, 14 hours of live shows a week, it's hard to clip every little thing you say. But I've been saying pretty much the same thing since day one, and that is the best way to win on a defensive line is up front, interior defensive tackles. That Brad Holmes is not going to waste money on high-priced free agents. That edge rusher is not a big need in 2025 or 2024 or 2023, that you've got to be able to fill the pipeline. You do the roster roulette theory, which is my theory, on how you fill the hopper, right? You add the right players at the right time. You negotiate the contract, the cap space to be able to sustain success into the future. That means you bring Aiden in 22. Well, now this year, you're probably going to draft an edge. And then people go out and say stuff like, oh, now he's saying that we need an edge. No. I've always been saying this. I've been saying it since last year and the year before, that this would be the year that we're finally going to get an edge in the draft. It's part of my roster roulette theory that we've gone over on this channel numerous times. So it's not just about getting stuff right every once in a while. It's about accurately predicting the way that the Lions are going to operate from year to year and how many times we get the draft correct. Doubling down last year on corners. That was correctly picked. Picking corners up in the free agency period. That was accurately predicted. The same thing this year. Everybody knew we were going to get a corner in free agency. The question was how many and how much. And what will Brad do this year in the draft? Obviously, it's defensive line. If he doesn't go defensive line, something's wrong. Like, that wouldn't make any sense, especially with how deep it is. Why would you run the other direction when the draft is extremely deep at 2 positions? Why would you go somewhere else? That just wouldn't make any sense. So if Brad went all offense this year, then something's not right.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what was going on.
So, I mean, it's partly like just understanding football, understanding how contracts work from an executive perspective, right? That, well, it only makes dollars and cents. And if it doesn't make dollars and cents, well, it's not going to work. Brad has got to be able to sign the guys that he's already brought in. He has to be able to develop the guys that he wants to keep. And you can't do that by spending boatloads of money in free agency. And now you're starting to see a lot of other channels and a lot of other, shows say the same thing, that Brad's making the right decision. I've been saying it for years. This is the way you build a team. Eric's been saying it for years. This is the way that you build a team. You don't build a team through free agency. You build it through the draft. So, guys like Howie Roseman, dude's been doing it exactly the right way. Draft. That team that won the Super Bowl last year, almost all of those players were drafted. At least the players that made big, significant plays in the game that were a big part of the reason why that team won were drafted. But you can't hang on to everybody either, and you saw that this year. They lost a couple of very big players that they drafted, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat. The Lions don't want to have that happen, right? They want to keep these guys. You want them to keep these guys. So you're going to have the Pat O'Connors. You're going to have the El-Qudim Mohammeds. You're going to have Marcus Davenport on a cheap deal. You're going to expect that Josh Pascal is going to step up again. So it's not, again, I don't want to be right or wrong every single day and try to prove myself to people. They know. right? They know where to get good quality information. I'm not here to pump clickbait. I'm not here to, yell, scream, and jump up and down and try to say I'm better than somebody else. Just let the work speak for itself, just like your Lions do. Like, they step on the field, let the work speak for themselves. And that's it. Jared Goff was a bridge quarterback, right, Eric?
Yes.
And then he let the work speak for himself. He's not a bridge quarterback. Come on.
Yeah. So there is a player that I ignored today that I probably should have included in my more or less segment. Marcus Davenport. So he's been in the league since 2018. He's had a 5.62 9 1-2-1 sack season. Last year, he only got 1 in 3 games, but he has had as high as 9 with the New Orleans Saints in 2021. So will Marcus Davenport have more or less than 1 sack in 2025? And I want everybody in the chat, let me know on this one, because I was super excited, because this is one of the contracts that I said I wanted to see happen. I wanted to see Marcus Davenport come back on a cheap deal with incentives, just like last year, where it's not going to cost us anything. If he's not healthy or if he's not up to snuff, then you cut him before 53-man cut day and you're not owed anything. Very, very minimal contract, and $1 million, right? $1.7 million if we were to cut him today. It doesn't cost us that much money. And so for me, I'm going to go first on this one. Marcus Davenport, I'm going to say, has 4.5 sacks. He is going to have more than last year.
I went with 5, but he's going to have to remain healthy.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to go back to, and I'm glad we're doing this now, because after we get to camp, or once we get to camp, we're going to kind of figure out where the rotation is and if these guys even have an opportunity of making the roster. The reason why I'm going with 5, I was just kind of adding up some of the numbers here. Like Al-Qadim Muhammad, I have at 5. Davenport, I have at 5. We have to add Josh Pascal in.
There you go. You want to do him too?
Yeah, we have to, because
Okay.
the numbers have to jive. But the reason why I'm going with 5 is if he is healthy, Marcus Davenport has the ability to get to the quarterback. He always has. And even though on the edge as a can crusher, that's not his number one goal. His number one goal is to shut the run down and make sure nothing gets outside of him. Force everything to the inside. Let your interior guys kind of work. But Josh Pascal is another, he's that wild card, right? He's never been a sack guy because he was working more on the interior. Now he's on the exterior. And last year, he didn't produce a ton.
Well, he had 2 sacks last year, 1 the year before, and 2 in his rookie season.
When I look at Davenport, here's what jumps out to me. The most sacks that he's ever had was 9, was in 21. And since then, he's had quite a few injuries. He's averaged 1 sack a season over the last 3 seasons, but he's only played in a handful of games. If he can get back to 21's performance and just be, even a 60-70% of himself.
Yeah, that's 5-6 sacks.
Right. And then mixed in with this amazing cast and utilizing a good rotation, I think that there's no reason why he can't have 5. I'm not saying he's going to have 10. There's no way. I think that you want to mix it up with these guys. Everyone needs to win a little bit, but I also look at the measuring stick, which is Aiden. If Aiden's going to have, 12 to 17 sacks this year, and I'm rolling with 14, then I have to look at the rest of the defensive line and what they can do. And last year we had, 37 sacks. I don't think that there's any reason why we can't get north of 40. But again, I don't think that sacks are the end-all, be-all. I think that interceptions and turnovers are, and I think the focus of sacks is to turn the ball over, right? You want to flip the field. Your sacks need to be coming on those third downs. First and second down, great. Backs them up a little bit, but they still have 2 or 3 more downs to get a first down. Sacks are more important on third and fourth down than first and second down all day.
Yeah. They should have a listing for sack fumbles. That should be even more important. How many sack fumbles you get.
So Josh Pascal, over the last many seasons, right? He's only been in the league 3 years. He averages about 1.5 sacks each season. But again, he has not been utilized outside of a defensive tackle position in his rookie year. They kind of moved him more to defensive line in 2023, where he was more of a hybrid role. Last season, he missed a couple of games, I think 4, due to whatever he had going on with his foot or something going on with it. He had a cancer checkup and something happened. I don't think it was related to cancer, but something happened where he had to miss some games.
Yeah, they removed some cells on his shoulder.
Yeah, there we go.
That were they weren't cancer, but they were cancerous.
It was enough cause of concern to make sure it got cleaned up.
Yeah.
So 2 sacks last year for him. In a role where the defense is completely trashed. I mean, the defense was missing too many players. I think that he can step up again this year and have a bigger role. I'm going to go with Josh Paschal 6. And again, all this is going to change once we get through camp and we figure out what these guys are all about and how they're working together. What do you think?
What number did you give him?
6.
6? Wow. That would be his best season ever.
Yeah, times
But
3.
you know what? We have to assume if we have one big sack getter, let's say Hutch, and let's say he gets 14, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You would want to at least match that plus a little bit from the rest of your players.
Exactly.
Together. So you want to get up in that 40, 45-ish range. That's really, really good because we've been in like the 30 or less range.
No, we were at 37 last year.
We're 37? Okay,
Yeah.
So we weren't quite to 40
We
yet.
were like middle of the pack, maybe
Yeah,
the
middle of the
bottom third, but
So what's up in the top? I mean, let's set our sights kind of high.
okay,
here.
so hold on here. 2024 sack totals per team. I want to say obviously the Broncos had the most with like 60, 63. Right, they had 60, but there was a big difference, right? That is a 3-4 defense. They're using outside linebackers. Their outside linebackers had the majority of sacks. They both had double digits. The Baltimore Ravens had 54. The Cowboys had 52. The Texans had 49. The Vikings had 49.
So let's shoot for 45.
Yeah, so I want to be north of 40 at a minimum, but let me just open this up here. Let me run it down. Come on. Where's it at? Defense. Why is it not showing me the sacks now? I just opened it up. What the hell? Maybe I clicked on the wrong one. Yep, I did. Here we go. Okay, so the Lions, let me just say this. The Eagles had...
That look you're making.
Yeah, I'm just looking sideways at it like, what, is that real? The Eagles had 41.
Wow.
This is regular season. They had 41. So they're dead nuts, like middle of the road here. They were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 15th best.
Yeah.
Right? Your Lions at 37. You're going to tell me the difference between them winning a Super Bowl and the Lions not was 4 sacks? You're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're wrong. I'm sorry. So if you were to average what all of these teams did, I mean, the bottom end of the barrel was 28 for the Patriots, and the top end of the barrel was 63 for the Broncos. Even if I just did stupid math and said the average sacks on a team last season, you could call it 40. You know, that's your average. I'd have to add all these up. I don't have all these numbers written down, but if you to add them all up, I would say it's probably 40. And that's why I'm saying the Lions need to be north of 40 with this defense that they've combined all of these players or brought all these players back. There's no reason why they can't be better than last season, but I'm not saying the season hinges on sack numbers because clearly the Eagles won the Super Bowl being middle of the pack. And that says something, right? The Broncos should have won the Super Bowl. They had the most sacks last year, right?
Yeah, by a wide margin.
Right? The Texans, they way overpaid for Danielle Hunter. They should have won the Super Bowl last year, even the year before. Didn't happen. How about the Vikings? They paid through the nose for some players last year. They had 49 sacks. They should have won. Anyway, what's your take here?
Yeah. Listen, you reminded me of something on yesterday's show. We were going over my top free agent list there yesterday, and number 1 was Cam Robinson. He ended up going to the Texans yesterday to replace Laramie Tunsil, who they traded. So there was that. Yeah.
So Pascal, sack numbers.
Yep. So Pascal, I am going to say he's going to double his best season ever 4.
Okay. And I'm going to go with 6, assuming that he's going to have the majority of snaps, which to me, if you're in a heavy rotation, and if Davenport, doesn't beat him out and Davenport's the rotation, you'll have Pascal and Davenport rotating, and then you'll have Aiden and Al-Quddin Muhammad rotating. I think that if those are the 4 that make it out of camp as the 4 best before the Lions add a rookie, like we don't know what the rookie's going to do yet. Hell, we could add a rookie that has 10 sacks. We don't know. But at any rate, then this means that the Lions have Aiden, by my score, it would be, hold on, I just got a message. What was it?
Oh.
Oh, my kids are in Portugal. So if Aiden has 14, right? If Aleem has 4, if Roy Lopez has 1, if Pat O'Connor has 1, right? If Al-Quddin Muhammad has 5, if Davenport has 5, and Pascal has 6, that's 36 sacks.
Yep.
That's without any linebackers doing anything. That's without any DB blitzes. And that's without the rookie defensive tackle and defensive end that we're about to bring in. I think that that's a fair assessment. I'm probably a little heavy on a couple of these guys, but that's okay because once we get through camp, we're going to finalize these numbers and put up the tickets so you guys can put your money where your mouth is for a good cause. All right, final thoughts of the day. Shit, it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Jeez,
crazy. Huh? It goes fast when you're having fun.
I had no idea it was 11.
Yeah, well, it's because we went through this segment with all these players doing over-under. Those kind of things take a long time. It could almost be a whole show all by itself. One of these days we'll go through the whole roster and see what we think of every single guy. But yeah, great day. Now I need to go deal with 12 inches of fresh white crap on my lawn.
If you just wait a day, and I'm sure it'll melt.
It's supposed to be 40 today and tomorrow. So I don't know. But we literally it was over the top of my boots, my hiking boots that I wore out here today. So I had snow in my boots when I walked in.
What I think is crazy is this. So the Lions were, I guess, let me count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They were the 22nd best team in the NFL with sacks last year. 22nd best team. The Eagles were the 15th best team. The Commanders were, I don't know, about the 12th best team. The Chiefs were 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3. The Chiefs were the 18th best team last season at 39 sacks. The Chiefs and the Eagles made the Super Bowl with a combined 80 sacks in the regular season.
Yep.
Just 17 more than what the Denver Broncos had.
But I'll bet you the Chiefs and the Eagles in turnovers probably were pretty high up there.
Turnovers, you mean offense or defense?
Yeah, like defensive turnovers. Yeah, like plus. They were in the plus category for turnovers.
Okay, I got you. I mean, I can tell you real quick. The Eagles were at plus 11.
Yep.
The Lions were at plus 9. The Chiefs were at plus 6. Yep. The Buffalo Bills plus 24. Steelers at plus 16. Packers at plus 12. Chargers at plus 12. Vikings at plus 12. Eagles at plus 11. Houston at plus 10. Lions at plus 9. Bears at plus 8.
Those were all playoff teams you listed until the Bears.
Right. Yep. Ravens, Broncos, Chiefs, Rams, and then the Commanders at +1. If there was I don't think there was one team in the playoffs that had a negative amount.
Nope.
Right? So the Jets, the Saints, the Cardinals, the Colts, the Panthers, the Bucks. The Bucks were in.
Yeah.
They're -5.
Yeah. So they were similar to a couple of years ago when the Vikings won all those games and had a negative turnover margin. And they were also a negative point differential. Their point differential was awful, and they still made the playoffs. And then they lost to the Giants in the first round at home.
I mean, I will say this. Obviously the 2 games that Jared Goff had 5 interceptions. Some were his fault, some were not.
Yep.
You just take half of those away. The Lions are at +14, which would have put them in 3rd place.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And if we don't fumble the ball, right? We gave the ball away 7 times on the ground. And we had 12 interceptions on the year, which is not terrible, right? 12 interceptions, throwing that many balls up in the air is not bad. It's not. But it could have been 7 interceptions for Jared Goff last year had a few calls been made, which I'm not gonna go down that road. But here's my final thoughts of the day. I think that the Lions defense is going to be improved over last season in a dramatic fashion. I think that you're going to watch one of the best defenses in the league hit the ground running as soon as preseason opens up. This team is so well gelled right now. You're not going to need to go through the first few days of camp where you're trying to figure everything out. No, these guys know each other. They know what this team does and wants and expects. They know what the standard is, like DJ Reed says, right? Standard is a standard. There's a reason why Brad Holmes went and did what he did, bringing all of these players back. You're going to enter training camp as probably one of the best teams in the NFL from a continuity factor, and that is huge. There's 2 things in the NFL that, in my opinion, allows teams, franchises, to win ball games at a high rate and compete every single season in the playoffs. And that is continuity at the head coaching position and the fingers, of the coaching staff, the tree, keeping that largely together, which the Lions have done for 4 seasons. And now we finally lost, 8 coaches or whatever, but only 2 of them, the main 2, offensive, defensive coordinator, like they expected that. And I don't think that it's going to be as big of a loss as what people are thinking. And then the other thing is keeping your team together and being able to draft correct. So those are the 3 things. The Lions are doing all of that very well. And what Brad has now done in free agency is brought back the same team from last year that's going to compete at a high level, that knows what needs to be done on day one. They, for the most part, know the playbooks. The terminology that'll be changed a little bit. They're ready to hit the ground running. So for all the team, for all the people that are poo-pooing on Brad, for all the people the fans that are upset at Brad for not doing X, Y, and Z, I hope to God I don't hear you saying how good this team is this year, because you're going to, and I'm going to laugh at you, because up until this point you've said how terrible this team is going to be and how terrible Brad is and everything else. So don't jump back on the bandwagon when we rip off 7-8 wins in a row. It's bound to happen. Because what I'll say is you can go back to March 20th, 2025, and you're going to hear the same thing that I've been saying this entire offseason, which is we're winning the offseason right now. We've won free agency for the NFC North at a minimum, but Brad has done the exact thing that he needed to do. And now he can hit the draft and continue to do what he's been doing well, which is bringing in really good players at the right time to fit this team. Dan's going to do what Dan does. He's going to have the team ready. Year 5, the Detroit Lions are going to the Super Bowl. I know I said last year it should have happened. That is the year it should have happened. And had we not had all these injuries, it probably would have happened. But we're going to take those injuries as an opportunity, as a learning lesson, and we are able to get other guys onto the field now that are coming back in 25. They're going to help this team win in 25. So I'm all in for the season. I think that we've done a great job. Look, we're not done yet. We still have the draft. There's still a little bit of free agency going on, but I think that the Lions are primed for a big year.
Yep, it's going to be fun.
All right, y'all have a wonderful day. Appreciate you guys all joining us. Tomorrow is Friday, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow's Friday. We got to do something tomorrow. What are we going to do tomorrow? Yeah,
don't
March
know.
Madness that starts tonight, so brackets have to be in today, right?
I don't watch basketball.
I haven't watched any basketball either, but my first bracket, I had the Spartans win it all. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in a couple hours. I'll do a bracket show and just screw around with it, have some fun with it. I want to put a couple of brackets out and see how we do. We'll do a Rockhound bracket. I think there's some $1 million brackets out there that we can join.
There you go.
So, all right, y'all take care. Go and probably go Detroitlions. We'll see you on the next one. Again, I don't have an ending, so this is your ending. Bye for now.